I have a question. I know you were talking about the art of the lie and everything, and I was just thinking, like, when was your first experience with, like, that medium of the art of the lie? Or is there, like, like a beginning sort of genesis of, like...
Yeah, you know how, like, comedians talk about they're like, I remember the first time I made a group of people laugh, and it stuck with me, and I wanted more of that, you know?
Well, that's not what's happening.
Well, why don't you tell us
absolutely
how
not.
this all started? Because I think it kind of started innocently for you, right? I mean, you were. Can you tell people what happened? Like you went to prison for mortgage fraud.
Right. Yeah, I went to prison for, well, there's no mortgage fraud. It's bank fraud. For bank fraud.
Having to do with mortgages.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I guess.
Yes. How would you share it? How would you say it?
I mean, it's bank fraud. There is no mortgage fraud. In federal system, there's financial institution fraud, there's mortgage fraud, there's wire fraud, there's all these different types, and there's obviously conspiracies. You know, conspiracy to commit, and if you're like involved in it, conspiracy. So I mean, I was hit with bank fraud, conspiracy to commit bank fraud, money laundering, wire fraud, conspiracy to commit wire fraud, aggravated identity theft, passport fraud, Social Security fraud, Social Security documentation fraud, government or something about forgery of federal documents, wire fraud against the United States government. There's just they really just start piling.
To the tune of what amount did they give you?
The amount changed. Like when I first got arrested, it was like $26 million. And then I said, I've never seen $26 million in my life. That's a fucking lie. Like I just lost it.
Mm-hmm.
That's not true. I won't plead.
Do you think I'd be in America if I had $26 million or in Florida or whatever you were?
And then they dropped it to. They came back at 20 or 21 or 19, somewhere around there. And I was like, absolutely not. That's not true. I want to see the documents. I want to know where they're coming up with these figures. So then they came back and they said, $15 million with a loss of $9.5 million. And they said, basically it was like, you're going to accept this amount or, we can go back to the FBI and we can have all their documents in Florida condensed and find out what their figures are. And we know we're going to get you for, they're saying like $40 million in the mortgage company that I owned. And they were like, and we'll put that on you. My lawyer's like, what are you doing?
You don't want that.
You don't want that. And I was like, and she was like, what does it matter? So, and I was like, all right. She's like, you're looking at maybe getting 10 or 12 years. You're going to cooperate. You're going to get out in 4 or 5 years. You're going to be fine. I was like, okay. Ooh. So then I get what's called your pre-sentence report. And my pre-sentence report says 32 years of life.
Jeez.
So she was off. Yeah. And then I argued, and I got him down from $9.5 million and lost to $6 million. But basically, I went to prison for bank fraud.
Yeah.
It's bank fraud. It happens to be because there was lots of other. There were credit card fraud. There was credit card fraud. There was just basic loan fraud in general. There's no house at all. I'm just borrowing. But those things were pale in comparison. So they don't even talk about it or throw it in there. It's like, look. If we've got you for murder, do we also try and get you for assault?
Yeah, exactly.
Fuck the assault charge.
Yeah.
Hit him for so everybody's it's all about the murder.
They wanted to make an example of you, it seems.
Yeah. Right. Oh, they slam me. And the woman that got me, her name was Gail McKenzie, the assistant U.S. attorney or U.S. prosecutor. She, she just despised me. Mm-hmm. And I know a bunch of guys that have her as a prosecutor. She apparently had been, and this is what I was told. I believe this is what I was told from my federal defender was that she took white collar crime very seriously, specifically because she had prosecuted some Russians or something for some type of white collar crime, and in the middle of prosecuting them, they had poisoned her.
Whoa.
And so she had gone. She'd gone to been in the hospital for days and whatever. So she takes it very serious. So when you sit there and you go, well, nobody got hurt and it's a non-violent, that's not you. She would get very offended. It was like, wait, I'm sorry, you got a bad guy. It has nothing to do with me. I'm harmless. Yeah. I wouldn't hurt anybody. Yeah. So, but basically, what ended up happening, how it started. You were saying, I know you were leading to. It started innocently. I worked at a mortgage company. First loan I had. I processed all the paperwork. No big deal. I'm excited. I think it's going to close because I'm still thinking if you just get the paperwork, not realizing that you need to really, still needs to meet underwriting guidelines. You have to really look at it. Well, it turns out that my manager looked through the file and she said, look, before I sent it off to underwriting to be underwritten and then processed for the closing where they send the money. What ended up happening was there was a 30-day late on one of the on a verification of rent. So my borrower, had been 30 days late on her verification of rent. So the program she was on, so it's done. She's dead. She's not getting the loan. And I was like, holy shit. And I remember my manager, she's like, you didn't even look at it, did you? I was like, no. And she went, she's like, okay, well, it's an issue. She said so. And she pulled out the whiteout out of her drawer and went, and she goes, so here's what you do. She goes, white it out, go make a copy, stick the copy in the file, send it off. You'll be fine. Whoa. And I'm like, I could go to jail for that. I can't get in trouble for that, right? And she's like, they're not going to catch it. Yeah. She goes, and even if they do, the worst that'll happen is you blame it on your borrower, and if they don't believe you, you'll get fired. Worst that happens, you get fired. Nobody's calling the FBI. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. I believe you. So I did it, came back, sent it off, sweated bullets for 5 days or 4 days, whatever it was, and then they called and said, okay, ready to close.
Wow.
Went to closing, got a check for $3,500 or $3,000, whatever it was, and I was like, holy shit. Next guy that came in, he made like $45,000 or something, but if he made like $48,000, he could get a loan. So,
it out.
Let's pop, send it in. Now, how's it look? Wait, boom, loan closes. Nice. Next person, something else like that. Okay, let's do this. Next person, So I just kept getting more and more emboldened to the point where everything was closing.
Oh, shit.
And so what happens? Do you just like start having expensive tastes and you just got to keep it going? Or you're just like, this money's too easy, I can't say no? Or, is there any point along this path?
It's just a 6 to a 9. It didn't seem, seems innocent. And it's like, he's going to make the payments. Yeah. He pays his rent. Even the chick that's behind, it's not like they didn't evict her. She was 30 days behind. She caught up. She's fine. People get late.
And plus, you want to help these people get houses, right?
I'm thinking. I mean, I would love to sit here and say that there was some altruistic goal of helping people and the big bad banks, and I just want to help these people. And I listened to the very first chick that I did a loan for. Her name was Debbie Boyd, and she told me she later sold that house and made like $75,000 or $50 or $75,000. Wow. Like 3-4 years later, she ended up selling and made a chunk of money and always made her payments and everything. So you could say, wow, that's great. You really, and she'll tell you right now, she'll go, you really helped me out. Like, that was a great house. That was great. She'll tell you that. Wow. There's also Steve Flaherty, who I got him well over $1 million worth of loans that he shouldn't have gotten. And he made all the payments, and then then I refinanced his house and pulled out like $60,000 or $80,000 because he wanted to buy a business. He wanted to buy a sports bar.
Okay.
So he bought the sports bar, not knowing that all the liquor licenses were in the owner's name that he had bought it from, in his personal name and not the business's name. And so 6 months later, 4 months later, suddenly they show up and they say, okay, you can't, what are you doing? You can't sell alcohol here. It's not in your license. It's not this, and so they shut it off. So now he's got a sports bar that doesn't serve alcohol, and he's struggling to try and put it together, but he can't, and he's got to make the payment. So what does he do? He takes all these rental properties and he starts taking the rentals income and using it to pay his business and not paying the mortgage, and figured I'll get behind, but I'm getting the license. It'll be okay. Well, 3 months later, everything starts going under. So you could say, okay, well, first of all, Steve made some bad decisions. You could also say, and I argue that my prosecutor would say, he never should have got those loans to begin with. And I'm sure the banks would say, you gave him, and of course my argument would then be, I didn't tell him to buy a sports bar that he didn't know anything and make this bad, or use the rental income. Like, to me, I just stopped paying the rent on my sports bar. I've still got my rental unit. Instead, he leveraged everything, but of course he had nothing involved in the transaction either. It's not like he was losing anything. He's bringing a down payment to buy a quadplex or a 4-unit building, and I'm getting him his down payment back. So I'm getting him 100% financing on something he should have gotten 80% financing in. So he has no money in it. So is he really risking anything by taking that? No, he's risking his credit, but he's assuming I'll bounce back. The truth is, if he had put up 20% of his 20% of the purchase price of that home, Most likely he wouldn't have leveraged it. So there's arguments on both sides of the fence.
Yeah.
I don't know.
All this sounds like pretty simple. It's like paperwork, but there is a point where this kind of starts to go off the rails a little, as far as the kind of schemes you're pulling.
Eventually I got caught. I had lied on an application. It really boiled down to I lied on an application. I own this mortgage company. I had like 12 brokers, and I'm getting caught left and right. But I keep getting out of it.
Yeah.
I keep convincing the lenders that this isn't what happened, and that was the borrower, or they just blatantly catch us doing something, and then they just overlook it. They just completely. I got caught for. I don't know if I said this on any of the other one. I got caught one time for like $2 million worth of bad loans, and the lender knew it, and they were like. It's $2 million. What's going on? I was like, I remember specifically, I said, the guy's name was Gary. I go, Gary, listen, I said, if at the end of this conversation you think I'm stroking you a check for $2 million, I said, let me go ahead and clear that up right now. That's not happening.
Yeah.
I said, so we need to find a solution to our mutual problem. What is it? What is that solution? And he was like, all right, well, look, I'm going to go ahead and sell the loans because, they lend the money, they get them, and then they sell them in a package. I'm going to go ahead and sell them. So, great.
Yeah.
I'm good. He's like, but if it goes bad, you have to promise to help. Like, if these things come back, you got to promise to help us get rid of them. And I was like, absolutely, of course. What am I going to say? Yeah. No, you're on your own. Fuck you. Call the FBI. No, of course, buddy.
Yeah.
So, what ends up happening is eventually I get caught lying on an application. I had bought a bunch of rental properties. Well, rehabs. I bought a bunch of rental rehabs, and I rehabbed them, and then I sold them to my ex-wife, which was my current wife at the time. I sold them to her in her maiden name so that I got around with something called seasoning, where you have to own a property for a year before you can refinance it based on the new appraised value. So I got around that. But the problem is that, you're lying on an application. So I ended up getting a charge of wire fraud. And I got 3 years, so I can't own the mortgage company now.
Oh, wow.
And so that's the issue, is I couldn't own the mortgage company. So that's when I started getting creative.
Yeah.
Start painting.
No, wow. I mean you're such an artist that you are able to convince people that this is in their best interests,
Well, we always say art is seduction. You're seducing somebody into your vibe, and that's where I when I hear your story, I'm like, you took this to artistic realms. I don't know about that. I'm creative.
Yeah.
What did somebody say the other day? I was talking to some chick, and she goes, God, you're so creative. I said, shh. And she saw one of my paintings. And I said, shh. I said, you should see me do a mortgage. But yeah, what I did was I couldn't own the mortgage company. So what I decided to do was I decided to start a much larger crime where I figured out, at first I was just going to flip houses. I'm just going to start flipping houses. But, the problem with flipping houses is you buy a house for 40, you put 20 or 30 in it. So you got 70,000. You go to sell it. The borrowers in lower middle class areas, they don't middle class. They don't have a lot of times they don't have their down payment. They can't pay their closing costs. They have very little. They have bad credit. So let's say if you sell the house for $100,000, you might end up with $90,000 or $95,000 because you have to help them with their down payment. Basically, you're having to commit fraud. And what I definitely realized after I got charged and I was now on probation was I realized I used to always be like, it's kind of a gray area. I realized there's no gray area. It's either fraud or it's not fraud. If it's going to be fraud, then you might as well go all in.
I love that.
Go big or go home.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, so I want to flip houses, but they're in lower middle class areas, and here are the issues. One, the value's not there. So how do I create the value? How do I buy houses and be able to get them to appraise really high? That'll give me some cushion. And I thought, okay, if I buy the house, so I buy the house for 40. Well, I know if I record the value of the house for $200,000, then that'll help me with the appraisal. It'll help the whole area if I buy enough houses. That's what I need to do.
Everything goes up.
Everything goes up. Right. If suddenly, Ford Mustangs start selling for $120,000, across the board, then now when you walk in the dealership, it's $120 and you don't think anything of it.
Yeah.
Why? Well, because they're all selling for $120.
Yeah.
Assuming the market will bear that. And so one is I got to get them traced for $200,000. So I have to pay the extra doc stamps and go downtown and record them for $200,000. So that's what I'll do. So I start doing that. The other thing is, it's the borrowers. The borrowers are always an issue. So now I got to try and get these borrowers that will buy these houses for $200,000. And I thought, well, that's an issue because nobody's going to pay that in this area. And they always have bad credit, and they're always a pain in the ass. You know, I've actually had a couple borrowers actually like quit their job like a week before closing.
Oh, wow.
And it's like, and then suddenly, the day of closing, the lender calls them and says, this guy quit like a week ago. His job that he's been on for a year and a half or 3 years, or what, he just quit. And you're like, fuck.
Wow. Yeah.
Are you serious? Why would you do that? Why'd you do that? So. Yeah, I had a guy go on a fucking like a crack binge one time. It was meth. He went on a meth binge one time and blew like almost half of his down payment. And then, it's okay, I can get it back. It's like, you've been working at Tire Kingdom for 3 years. What happened? He's like, well, and his girlfriend was like, I mean, it happens sometimes. They'll go off for. They always hire him.
You
back.
introduced him to the high life.
I'm like, you don't. And that's But close the loan first.
Yes. Wait a couple weeks to quit your job.
Yeah. He's going to have to get real creative.
Yeah. Look at the guy, Steve Flaherty. Yeah, he'd been on his job for like 5 years, and then after he got all this property and was really kicking ass, now he decides, quit my job.
Oh.
Yeah.
For what? To own a sports bar that you've never done before, that you don't know anything about, Anyway, people are just, they get delusional. So what I did was I thought, okay, the borrowers always seem to be an issue. So what do? How do you figure out how to get borrowers that always have perfect credit? I thought, well, you create them. So
Dude.
that's the logical step.
This is when you just fully put on a black hat.
So
you're just like, I'm stepping in.
This is off the rails.
Yeah,
this is the moment.
Officially off the rails.
So you have to create synthetic identities. And when I was doing it, there was no such thing as a synthetic identity. We just called them phantom borrowers, or we called them like we're like investors, hey bro, I got an investor, and they're like, oh what's his name? Here's his name. So I started making these investors, and I need a social security number, so I figured out how to go to Social Security and get them to issue me social security numbers to children that don't exist, right? Like 10-month-old children. Yeah,
wow.
It's not that hard.
It's really not. It's not as hard as you would think. It was a lot. It was just a bunch of phone calls.
Yeah.
Just like I kept tweaking it. So I kept calling Social Security and just tweaking. I was like, hey, I was born, hey, I'm whatever. At the time, I was like 32. They're like, I'm 32 years old, and I don't have a Social Security number. And they were like, do you have a driver's license? They've got to be like, this is another scam artist.
Yeah.
Do you have a driver's license? Yeah. Well, you have a Social Security number. What are you doing? Oh, never mind. Click.
Yeah.
Tweak it a little
bit.
Yep.
You keep calling back. Don't have one. Never had one. Live off the grid. You figure, okay, that's you're right. She's right. You live off the grid, and you call up, and then, basically one of the women that I called, she was like the second one, she was like, listen, no adult in the United States doesn't have a Social Security number. So go to Social Security. And she already knows I'm lying. You can tell the way she's talking to me.
Yeah.
Go to Social Security. Come to the office. Go fill out the paperwork. We'll look you up. Bring driver's license. All right. Hang up and go, okay, look, I got a 5-year-old kid. Never had a Social Security number. And then they're like, okay, well, okay, well, was he born in a hospital? Yeah. Got a Social Security number. They fill it out. Right? They fill out the SS8 form right there. Fuck. Hang up. Boom. Not born. Midwife. Born at home with a midwife.
Yeah.
Okay. 5 years old. Yes. Come on in. Bring the kid in with his birth certificate, and we'll check it out. And if he doesn't have one, we'll issue one.
Yeah.
Hang up. Sorry. Hey, kid's in Brazil right now with the mother. Gone. I need the social.
Good.
What else? Yeah.
Wow.
Still, sorry, there's nothing I can do. I mean, if the child's over 12 months old, we have to see the child. Okay. Boom. Call back. Keep in mind, you wait 30, 45 minutes. This is an all-day thing.
Yeah, literally.
So you call back, you put it on speaker, you do something else, suddenly, boop, they keep counting down. 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 5 minutes. So, hey, child, 10 months old, out of the country. I need a Social Security number. A Social Security, not born in a hospital, born with a midwife. Wife has them in Brazil right now. Need the Soch. And they go, you have to bring them in, or you have to come in with a birth certificate and a shot record. Okay, you understand? I don't have my daughter, whoever it is, whatever, daughter, son, whatever. I forgot what I said. Whoever it is, I don't have, no, it's okay. Birth. And I was like, well, why the shot record? With the shot record, every month or two, they have to get new shots, and it shows that he's alive. Perfect. I go online. I find out how to get a shot record. I then make a shot record. I make a birth certificate.
Brilliant.
Make a birth certificate for a kid. I order the secure document paper.
Wow.
I order the seal. That was a whole issue. Like in my book, I go all into like how many calls, how many this, what I told them. I kept altering it until eventually I got them to make a seal. It's not the exact seal, but it's similar sounding.
Yeah,
it was like instead of like the statistical, instead of it saying, God, I forget what it said. It was like state of South Carolina, not statistical, but vital records, whatever. I put, virtual records, company of South Carolina or something. So if you see it, and then when I got it, I just etched out a couple of things, and then I beat it up really good. I took sandpaper and just did the seal over and over until it wore down. And then when you did it, it looked pretty good. You could see South Carolina. You could see records. You could see a little bit of the virtual, So it was like, okay, pretty good. And I remember when I handed it to them, and this happened several times when I would go to the DMV and get them to give me driver's licenses and IDs, and you give them the paper, they would take it and they go, okay. And they do this with the seal. They go, okay, and they'd put it to the side. And I mean, the first time it happened, I remember thinking, hey, you admire that. Take a look. You know how long that? Whoa. I was irritated.
Yeah. Touch it more.
They didn't even scrutinize it. It was like
man.
boom. Okay, go ahead and stand over there. What the
You're like, wait, I'm an artist.
Yeah.
That's fucking perfect.
3 hours.
I splashed coffee on it. I baked it. I folded it 5 times. I sprayed hairspray on it. I really worked on this fucking thing, and it was just like,
holy shit.
So yeah, it was upsetting.
I'm sure I'd wanted to frame, put it in like a nice frame.
So anyway, yeah, what I did was I went into Social Security with the thing and the birth certificate and the whole thing. And I remember the first time I went in, they said, yeah, this is no good. I went, what? Can you imagine? I'm just shock that went. The heat shot up.
I was going to ask if you get that.
Yeah, I do. And this is what's so funny about that is everybody tells me like, bro, aren't you nervous? Weren't you nervous? I'm like, no. I mean, or it's not that I'm not nervous.
You don't look nervous.
I don't look nervous. And guys are like, you didn't flinch. Like you didn't. Yeah. You didn't seem nervous at all. And I'm freaking the fuck out. I'm trembling. It's like if they'd put their hand like on my chest, they'd have been like, Jesus, you're about to die.
Over a social security number?
I've gone to use fake credit cards. And like my buddy's with me, right? So we go shopping or whatever, and I go to pull out a credit card. It's a real credit card.
Yeah.
But it's in the name of someone who doesn't exist. It's a completely fictitious person. And I put the card, but ordered the card. Like I got a MasterCard, or I've got an American Express with like a $3,000 limit. I pull it out, I put it down, and your buddy's sitting next to you, and all of a sudden he's like,
yeah.
And he's like looking around, and it's like, I mean, he's ready to bolt, and it's like, bro, you're just standing next to me.
Yeah.
The cop showed up right now and said, that's fake. This is a lie. This is all bullshit. This is fraud. You could say, see you.
Yeah.
And they're not going to even talk. They might be like, how do you know this guy? Like, this is my buddy Matt. I don't know that. You do whatever.
They're not thinking 10 steps ahead like you are,
you're not in trouble.
Yeah.
So, and not just that, I would sit there, and I've had them, in the old days, they don't do this anymore. They would look at the driver's license, right? Or I'm sorry, the credit card. They would swipe it, and if there was a fraud alert, like now they just cancel, like it doesn't go through.
Yeah.
And they'll call you on your phone or something. They would swipe it, and they would go, oh, I have to call the merchant. Like I have to call them, and they would pick up the phone and call. So if you knew something was wrong, most guys bolt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this guy John Bosiak, he would actually lean over and snatch the card and be like, that's the third time that's happened. I'm done. I'm just
good
walk
call.
away.
Yeah, that's a really good call.
That's okay.
So yeah, and leave. Like that to me, that's gutsy. Like I'm not gonna cry there.
Yeah.
Like but I know that the card's okay. Like I am the fake person.
Yeah.
So I know you didn't talk to Lee Black.
Yeah.
Lee Black didn't call in because Lee Black doesn't exist.
Yeah. I am the Phantom.
Right.
Yeah.
So they would go, oh, we got to call the merchant. They'd pick up the phone and they'd call. And they go, I'm not sure. what's your social security number? And I would go, or not your social, but like, what's the last 4 digits of your social? Or what is your, they would say like, what's your date of birth? And I would go, you know what? Hold on, let me see who I am today.
Yeah.
I pull out my card, and my buddy's ready to bolt.
Yeah.
And I go, hold on, who am I? Oh, I'm Lee Black, and I pull out my card. I go, my date of birth is 7/7/1970. Oh, yeah. So, yeah. And they go, he's July 7, 1970. They would giggle and laugh and hang up the phone. They go, okay, fine. They hang up, and they'd go through. The truth, I don't remember the fucking date of birth.
So you take it to a level of like absurd composure to where they think they're fucked up.
What am I going to say?
Exactly.
Gosh, bro, I can't remember.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Just wait. I'm like, you know what? That's a great question. That's an excellent question. Let me go ahead. Hold on a second.
Let's look at this together.
Yeah.
Kind of expels the
this
doubt,
out.
and it puts the doubt onto them, and then they're kind of unsure. Like, am I tripping?
But they're not. Look, let me tell you one thing about people is they're not thinking fraud.
Yeah.
If you're, I always say this to my buddies, any of my buddies who are black. I'm like, well, I got the 3 C's going for me, and they're like, what's that? I'm like, cunning, charismatic, and Caucasian.
That wasn't there. I was going to be like, and Caucasian.
Because they always, they're always like, if you were a black man, you wouldn't have got rid of none of that. You wouldn't have gotten away with it. That's not true. I owned a mortgage company. I don't care. I've had women come in in big fuzzy flip-flops and moo-moos and come in and I'm desperate to get you alone. I don't care what you look like. I don't care if your whole body is tattooed. And I'm desperate. I want to get you alone. Like your appearance or race or creed doesn't mean anything to me.
Yeah.
I need to get you alone. That's all.
Well, because it benefits you, because you get a commission. Right?
Absolutely. So if they're thinking, well, you go in the bank, they want to give you, if you have the documents, they don't care what you look like.
Exactly.
Yeah, but they're not immediately believing that you're lying.
Yes, but they're not suspicious.
Yeah.
And if something goes wrong, they're not questioning it. Especially since I'm not ready to leave the bank. I'm ready to argue.
Yeah.
I'm staying here.
Yeah.
Like most people will bolt.
That's the dead giveaway when you bolt.
No,
Totally.
I'm not
That's
bolting.
how they know.
We're going to sit here. We're going to talk about it and get on the phone, get your manager, whatever. I don't know what's going on at the bank right now, but I want to talk to somebody.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you're acting? Do you feel like you're inhabiting a character? Or do you feel like there's a character of this calm person?
Somebody asked me that the other day. Like, do you feel like did you act differently per person? Like, no. Just being
Lee
me.
Black,
Yeah.
was abused as a child, or
Right,
whatever.
right, yeah. What I said was, the only thing I could say is that, like, I had this feeling like I was, and I used to say it was like the 007 syndrome, where I felt like I would walk in and I even, there was a chick, Rebecca Hauk, and she would always get nervous walking into some place, and she'd be like, I'm freaking out. I go, you walk in there like you own the fucking joint.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You say, can I get something to drink? Can I this? Hey, what's up? Where's the bathroom? Where's Jim? How long do I have to wait? You be an asshole.
Yeah.
You be an asshole, and they won't think anything's wrong. And she's like, are you serious? Like, I don't know. And I'm like, that's just what you do.
It works.
Ask for the manager.
Yeah.
Right. Let's go. And so that's to me, I would walk in, and I'm not in a hurry but I am like, all right, well, yeah, no, we're gonna.
So they issue this. Tell me about when they first issue a social security number to you for a non-existent person.
Well, so I ended up with that. Like, that didn't happen until actually, later when I started that scam. But basically, what I did was I started creating these fake people. Right. So I would get the socials and I would order the birth certificates. I would get the socials and I would order the credit cards. So I would create a fake person, right? So if I pulled credit, if I pull credit for somebody named, let's say David Silver, and I have a date of birth for a 35-year-old man, and I have a social security card for him. That's never been pulled. Social security number that's never been pulled. So I use this address, David Silver, 7/7/1970, whatever. And this social security number, which has never been used before, and I know that. And I use this address, and I pull that credit. Of course, he gets denied. because he has no credit. He has
History,
right. Now it's also gonna ask like, where does he work? Well, he works for Bay Area Gutters of Tampa Bay, Florida. He's worked there for 5 years. He's lived at this residence for 10 years. You say the right. What does he make? He makes $75,000 a year. He's a salesman. So you answer those questions consistently, the same, and you answer. But he's gonna get denied. He's got no credit. There's no profile. It says no profile found. But guess what? You turn around and pull it again 2 days later, or shoot, an hour later. Guess what it now says? It now
75,000.
Well, now it says all that, right?
Yeah.
And it says one inquiry an hour earlier, and it doesn't say no profile found. So what I do is I would go on, I apply for a couple credit cards, and then I would turn around and I would get secured credit cards, because most of those these companies would say, we can't give you a credit. Bank of America would say, well, we can't give you a card, but we can give you a secured card. If you're willing to put up $500, yes, I am. So like $500, they mail me the card. I've got a $500 credit card, and now they're reporting every single month saying, hey, David Silver with this social security number, with this date of birth, living at this address, has a credit card.
And you're paying it.
And he's paying it. And so I would get 3 secured credit cards, because I know what the underwriting guidelines are. The perfect person has 3 trade lines. Now, there's a certain mix they want, but the minimum you have to have is 3 trade lines. And at that time, you had over a 620 credit score. Now it's like 650. But regardless, in 6 months, I got like 700 credit scores. Out of the gate, I'm way above board. And I've been on my job for 5 years. How do you know that? I can make the W-2s, pay stubs. You can call the employer. You can check the tax ID number. The company's been around for 10 years. Here's the W-2s and pay stubs. Here's the address. Here's this. You can mail them something.
All fake.
All fake.
Yeah,
All
okay,
fake.
I was just about to ask. I was like,
No, you can buy on, if you go on like, if you go on Sunbiz, which is Secretary Treasurer for Florida, like any companies that have been like, they're 10 years old, if they get a couple of years behind not paying their fee, their corporate fee, then they go into inactive status, and then they stay there for 3 years. And after like 3 years, you can buy the company.
Oh, wow.
So now I have a company that's 5 years old. I just have to pay those back fees.
Beautiful.
And you can change the name. You can do everything. Right.
Do you ever get to a point where you're like, this is just a lot of work? You know what I mean? And you are an artist because you had a fine arts degree, as you've said.
I got T-shirts. I have T-shirts that say it.
Oh, that's great.
These guys they send me pictures of themselves wearing the T-shirts, and we're like, I have a bunch of guys that this was hilarious, because one of the things that happened to me was this thing where I was Gary Sullivan, and these guys are constantly they all have the shirts at work, and they constantly make jokes about Gary Sullivan.
good, that was the name, Gary Salt.
Yeah, I'll tell you the story if we get there. I'm sorry, this is already slow.
No, it's too entertaining and interesting, because it's just crazy, because like this is all still sounding. I want to get to the point where you're like on the side of the street getting social security numbers from homeless people.
Well, what happens is I start making all those fake people, and I drive the prices up. So now each person that I make, and I've made everybody, like the names I'm making, I can make up any name I want, but Quentin Tarantino, Reservoir Dogs, right? So
Mr. Brown.
Right. So I
Green.
start name everybody, James Green, Lee Black, Michael White, David Silver, William Blue, Brandon Green.
Porn star names.
So I have all these.
You're leaving a little bit of a trail, too.
Yeah.
I'm not thinking like that, though.
Yeah,
I'm not. Nobody's looking. And keep in mind, so these guys are buying houses for $40,000. They're cleaning up just the outside. I'm getting an appraisal, getting an appraisal done on the house, and then I'm refinancing the house at like 80% value. So I'm getting a $160,000 loan on a house that I bought for $40 and put 10 into. I got $50,000 in this house. I'm making $100,000 at least, 100, 110. And so that's happening, and I end up borrowing like $11.5 million in all these guys' names over the course of like 18 months to maybe 2 years, maybe close to 2
One
years.
neighborhood you're focused on?
Yeah, I focused on Ybor City.
Oh, okay.
Ybor City. Yeah. So
Developing.
Yeah.
they said, I think Forbes said that like Ybor City was, the year I was doing it was I think it was in the top 20 fastest growing zip codes in the nation. Might have been top 10. So, yeah, that's right in my face, and I've got to take a
sorry.
fucking.
Sorry, buddy. Sorry.
I have a drug test. So, you're killing me. I'm not sure how it works, but
No, it wouldn't
We
connect
won't
you. It's
do
CBD anyways.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I don't honestly. I think you can actually fail at like 4 or 5 different drugs. At this point, they're almost sending nobody back to prison because of COVID.
Oh, yeah. They
I know,
wouldn't want you even in there.
Well, I know, because look, you got let's say you got a 2-year sentence, you go to prison, boom, catch COVID and die. Like I actually know a guy that got like an 18-month sentence. I don't know him,
Yeah.
but there was an article, and I know the guy that wrote the article, and he called me and told me, fucking guy got 18 months, went to prison, there a month, got COVID, died.
Crazy.
God.
So,
Wow.
anyway,
Damn.
it's horrible
Yeah.
in prisons. So,
Ybor City, you were saying.
Ybor City. So I drove the price of the area up. I pulled the money out. Well, then one day,
You drove the price of the whole area.
it went from, I want to say, I forget what the medium price was initially. It was like $100,000. I drove it up to like $250,000 or something.
Wow. You were the reason Ybor City was on the Forbes list.
So, well,
fuck, man.
and towards the end, like we were recording values of houses at $350, $450. I mean, because the houses, people weren't selling their houses reasonably anymore.
Yeah.
Okay, you had your house, you wanted $50,000. 6 months later, it's too much.
Yeah.
6 months later, I come back. I go, okay, I'll give you $50,000, and you suddenly say, no, I want $70,000. No.
Yeah.
6 months later, I come back. Okay, $70,000. They go, no, I want $100,000. This is the same piece of shit that's abandoned right here, right? That you wanted $50,000 a year ago.
Yeah.
And they're like, and they would go, yeah, bro, but have you seen the prices that these houses are selling
Yeah,
at?
yeah,
The whole
yeah.
area is
God.
going, and they're not going up. I just happen to buy so many houses.
Yeah.
So we had to keep raising the prices.
Wow.
So eventually what happened is the FBI figured something was going on. Even though these houses were going to foreclosure, I'd stopped paying, and they'd go into foreclosure, and the banks didn't realize it. But a buddy I knew got in trouble, and he cooperated, and so the FBI comes to arrest me. Well,
he told them about you.
yeah.
Oh, wow.
Eh,
Did he know?
whatever. He's
all
got a
of it?
daughter.
Yeah.
He didn't fucking,
Yeah.
look, listen, there's no code. It's just
okay.
bullshit.
That's
It's
all in the
bullshit.
movies.
It's all bullshit. There's just no code. Like, you might get one out of, listen, it's like 80 or 90% of guys fucking cooperate. The fact is that, do I stay true to my buddy that I already know is a scumbag, or do I try and get back to my wife and 2 kids as quickly as possible?
No-brainer.
Your wife's crying. Your parents are crying.
Yeah.
Your buddy, by the way, is going to be trying to bang your fucking wife as soon as you get out, and he's not going to send you money, and he's going to talk and tell all your buddies that you're a scumbag. I mean, it's just like who do you like?
Reality.
This whole bullshit code thing is supposed to be like Omerta is, you take care. I'll go to prison. I keep my mouth shut. You take care of my family. You send me money. You help me. They forgot about all that.
Yeah, right.
It's just down to don't tell on me. Mm-hmm. You're a scumbag. I got no problem telling on you at all.
And in your situation, you had no one to tell on.
And what, in that situation?
Just overall, when you ended up getting caught, if you
Hell
could have
no.
flipped on somebody,
I would have flipped. I flipped on. No, I flipped on everybody. You barely don't know. I tried.
Yeah.
Everybody had already flipped on me. So
This isn't adding up.
yeah. So but I take off. Like my buddy told. They form a task force. The FBI comes to arrest me. Well, I have another friend who's a Hillsborough County Sheriff's deputy. He comes to me and says, "Look, the FBI is going to come arrest you in a couple days. There was a task force. They handed it to the FBI. They're coming to get you."
oh damn.
So I take off on the run. So with this chick that I'd known about a month, had no idea
She's your Bonnie.
the Bonnie and Clyde of bank fraud,
And
or
you're
mortgage fraud.
You're
they call
leaving
it.
Florida, or is this in Florida?
Oh no, I leave Florida immediately. I go straight to Atlanta. We have like 80 grand. People always get upset when I say this, but I mean, look, that's no money.
Relative.
I can't live on 80 grand. Okay.
Yeah.
So I have to start a whole new life. I have to get, you can't do anything with 80 grand. So
Yeah.
I go straight to Atlanta. We rent a house from some guy. The guy,
The guy that ended up.
the statue guy.
Yeah.
So we rent his house. I then go downtown and I satisfy the loan on his house. So now I rent the house in your name.
Uh-huh.
His name was Michael Shanahan. I rent the house in Michael Shanahan's name. I make a fake ID for Michael Shanahan. I open a couple bank accounts. I satisfy the loan on his house. I call a couple hard money lenders. They come out. They go, "Your house is worth $200,000." I said, "That's right." They go, "Well, I'll lend you $150,000 on it." I said, "Great." So within a day or two, 3 guys show up. I close those loans a week later with different title companies. I get $150,000. I get like $400 and change.
Damn.
$400,000. They give me the money. I deposit the money in the banks. I start pulling the money out. Start, taking out cash, 9,000, 8,000, 7,000. That's a story where one time I went in with a check for 29,000.
Oh, this is great.
The guy gave me a hard time. You ever heard of this?
No.
See, I like that. I like that you have. I'm
I
gonna
did
talk
no
to you
research. I did. I was like, I don't even.
Yeah, forget then.
That story is great. You should
So what
tell Terry
happens
that.
is I refinance the house, right? So I go into the bank. Now my girlfriend, the whole time, keep in mind the whole time, every time I would walk into a bank, she's sitting in the car because a lot of times I would cash checks on her account or on my account, and they would call to verify the account, and she would say, "Oh yeah, that's so and so," and right. So I had actually had a check for $29,000. It was actually a cashier's check. I had taken the original check and had it divvied up in a different check. So I have a check that was based on another check. That's irrelevant. The point is, I got a $29,000 check made out to a guy named Scott Cugno. I have a real ID in Scott Cugno's name. So I go in and I say, "Hey, I'm trying to cash this check," and the woman says, "Okay, well, you have to talk to the manager. That's a big check." I said, "Okay, well, it's a cash branch. They have the money." So a lot of banks don't have the money. So I go in, I sit down. The manager comes over. He looks at the thing, looks at my ID, credit card. Okay, and he says, why are you cashing the check?" And I went, "I'm cashing the check because I need the cash, and I actually work for a payroll company, or I actually work for a labor company, and I cash the guys' checks for them. Like these guys will get a check for $2,000. They get charged like 10% if they go to a check cashing place. So I know the check is good because it's my company.
Yeah.
So I cash the check for him." And he was like, "Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense." And then he leaves, and he comes back, and he goes, and I remember my girlfriend calls me, and she's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Nothing. They're just running some verifications." I mean, they do it all the time. It's not. They're just running some verifications. No big deal. She's like, "Get out of the bank. Just come. Look, forget that check." And I'm like, "Calm the fuck down. Call me if the cops show up. I'll run out of the bank and I'll meet you at Publix or something. Calm down." And she's like, "What if something happens?" I'm like, "If something happens, I'll be arrested as this guy."
Yeah.
It's a real ID. They're not going to run like it's a real driver's license. Everything I have is real. So they're going to arrest me for something like some bullshit charge that's probably not true. Like, and you can get me out on bond before they figure out who I am. Because back then they didn't automatically, they weren't all plugged into NCIC.
Yeah.
Even now, from my understanding, is they're not plugged in. They still have to. First of all, they pay.
Like call on state to state is different.
Well, they pay. They also pay. So if your identity is not in question, then why would we run it? You've got a valid driver's license. Everything's valid. There's nothing for us to question whether this is you or not.
Yeah.
Why would we run you against NCIC?
Yeah.
Like, why? We have to pay. And a lot of companies do it, or a lot of these places do it in batches. Like once a week they do it.
Okay.
So I said, look, the worst that'll happen is, I get arrested. You go get me a lawyer, get me out on bond. Any shitty lawyer can get me out on bond immediately on some cashing a check or something stupid like that, which won't even make sense because their money's there.
Yeah.
So she's like, okay. I hang up the phone. Guy comes back and he goes, "Mr. Cugno." Now, keep in mind, the guy's house I refinanced is named Michael Shanahan, but I'm Scott Cugno. He goes, "Mr. Cugno, I have a question for you." I go, "Sure." He goes, "Why don't you deposit this in your own bank account? Why cash it?" And I went, "Well, because my bank account's in Florida and we're in Georgia, and they're going to hold it for like 10 days at the bank account. So that's what they used to do." And I was like, "So I need the cash now. The check is good."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Yeah, I know. It's just, okay." He leaves. My girlfriend calls. "What's taking so long?" "I don't know. The guy's a dick. I don't know." Calm down. Hang up. Comes back. He goes, "How did you get the check?" And I go, "My company, there's a guy, we're putting an addition on a guy's house. He refinanced the house. He paid for the addition. He cut me a check. He owed us money." And he goes, "That makes sense. Okay. And he leaves. So I'm sitting there. My girlfriend calls. "Get out of the bank. I'm telling you, it's taking too long. I'm like, "I'm not getting out of the bank. Guy's got a check for $29,000, my driver's license, and my credit card. If I fucking leave, he's definitely calling the police."
Yeah. But she's also thinking, like, you guys are already on the run to begin with.
Yeah.
Right,
know?
but
It's a valuable ID.
But I'm good. I'm good though. I know I know what he can do.
Yeah.
I feel like I know. So all of a sudden, my phone rings. I hang up the phone. My phone rings. I pick it up and I look at it, and I don't recognize the name. I mean, it's like a local number. I don't recognize it. So I answer it and I go, "Hello," and this chick goes, "Hi, is this Mr. Shanahan?" Michael Shanahan? I go, yes, it is. And she said, hi, Mr. Shanahan, this is Kimberly from SunTrust Bank or South Trust Bank or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yes. And I started looking around, and I'm in the bank. And I'm like, yes. And she goes, we have a Scott Cugno in the bank trying to cash a check on a cashier's check that was based on a check that was issued to you from a title company, whatever, SunTrust Title Company or whatever, Green Tree Title Company.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay. And she goes, we're just trying, if you actually issue the check and try and verify the information and if it's accurate. And I went, yeah, actually it's Scott Cugno, and the check was for $29,000. And yeah, I absolutely, I gave him a cashier's check. And she's like, okay, well, thank you so much. And I really do appreciate that. And okay, thank you. And I was like, okay, yeah, thanks. I go, how'd you get my number? Because if she'd called information, she would have gotten the real Michael Shanahan. There's a real Michael Shanahan.
Yeah. Whoa.
That's the guy you were renting from, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So she says, oh, well, it was cut. The cashier's check was issued off of a check that was cut from the title company. So we called the title company. They're a client of ours. They gave us your phone number, which happened to be my phone.
Oh, my God.
What?
So I'm like, okay, no problem. Hang up the phone. 5 minutes later, the manager walks out with some woman. They count out $29,000 twice, hands it to me. I put it in my pocket. I was shoving it in my pocket when the manager goes, Mr. Cugno, because I'd like to say I feel very apprehensive about this transaction. And I go, really? Well, what is it exactly? And he goes, I can't put my finger on it. And I go, it'll come to you. And I walk off. And he just sat there. He knew something wasn't right.
Yeah.
It'll come to you. That's
It did. Probably a week later when the Secret Service showed up and said, you fucking gave this guy $29,000.
Oh, my God.
So I walked out. I got in the fucking car. And I remember I got in the car, started the car, and I looked at Becky. I remember I just burst out laughing. Fucking believe this shit. They called. I told her what happened. She's like, we got to get out of here. We got to this. We got. So we ended up cashing out like whatever it was, $400,000. So and then we left, and then we went to South Carolina, and I rented we went to North Carolina, and we lived in downtown Charlotte. That was awesome.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
We're in like a condo. Wow. It was amazing. Right across the street from the Bank of America building. So. But then I went to South Carolina and I started running a scam in South Carolina. And when I was in South Carolina, I bought a house. I bought a house in the name of a homeless guy. Guy's name was Gary Sullivan.
Wow.
And I start refinancing the house, right? So I buy the house. I satisfy the loan on the house, and then I refinance the house a bunch of times, right? But I refinanced two houses. There was a smaller house that was worth like $110,000. This other one was worth like $230,000, $225,000, I think.
Wow.
So I'm pulling the money out. That's the one with the Gary Sullivan one where I had opened up a couple corporations and opened up bank accounts in the corporation so I can launder the money quicker.
Uh-huh.
That's the one where one time I had a corporate lawyer. And so I had refinanced the house, and at some point, one of the title company people figured out that there was another loan on the property. So she calls Washington Mutual. Washington Mutual's lawyer calls me, and they says, listen, bro. He's like, listen, is this Gary Sullivan? I'm like, yes, it is. And he's like, we have a loan on the house. Like, we're in second position. There's another loan in like first position. What's going on? I'm like, that's an excellent question. Let me get back with you as soon as possible. I'm going to go contact my lawyer, and I'm going to have him call you right now, and we're going to work this out. When I hang up the phone, drive to my corporate lawyer. I tell him basically what's not going on. I get there. We have a conference, and he brings in his partner, who's a criminal lawyer, and he says, okay, Mr. Sullivan, Gary, tell me what's happening. I said, this was happening. I refinanced that house like 5 times. Mm-hmm. They're like, what? I'm like, yeah. So I've got like $500,000 I owe on this fucking house. I said, I owe these guys $100,000. I got another one, and I got a couple more on the back. So I said, they're on second position. And I said, so you need to call this guy, call the lawyer, get him to agree to not contact anybody.
Yeah.
Not contact anyone, and I need him to agree to that, and I'll pay him back the $100,000. And he goes, you have the $100,000? I said, absolutely, I have the $100,000. And he goes, okay. So he calls the guy, and he calls Washington Mutual's lawyer, and they agree. Look, if he pays this plus the the points on the back of the loan and the first payment. Or like they add up a bunch of shit. And I'm like, I'll pay it. So he goes, okay, fine. So I go, and I go and I get it. But this is where these guys laugh, because what happened is that the two lawyers are there, and they said, okay, well, that's the first one. What about the other ones? And I went, with the other mortgages on the back? And they were like, yeah. And I said, they go, what if they find out? And I go, well, if they find out, I said, I leave town. And they start laughing, and they go, Gary. They said, you can't just leave town. They have your name, your social security number, your date of birth. They go, this the FBI. They'll find you like that. And I go, well, you're assuming my name's Gary Sullivan.
Oh my God.
Damn.
And they just were like,
damn.
And I mean, I remember at that moment, I remember thinking, they don't meet a lot of people like me.
No.
You can go peek behind the curtain.
Yeah, and I just looked at it, and he goes, well, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. I said, right, my current problem is this. Let's get him paid. I go get the money. I come back. I give him the cashier's check. Like, they wanted me to go to a Washington Mutual branch. The guy from Washington Mutual. I was like, I'm not walking to Washington. Are you nuts?
Set you up.
Jeez. Right. So I was like, fuck you. So I bring back the cashier's check. I give it to him. And I remember, too, I think I say this on Concrete. He then asked me, like, well, we need to discuss my fee. And I was thinking to myself, I already got the service. Like, I was like, okay.
Walk out right now.
I was like, I went, okay, so what is it? I said, well, what do you think? I said, you've worked for like a couple hours. He goes, well, I think $1,500. I went, okay. So I pull out my wallet. I start counting out the cash. And he goes, well, we typically take a check. We don't typically take cash. And I go, after what you just heard,
You'd
rather have a check.
From Gary Sullivan.
From Gary Sullivan.
And he was like, oh, no, I'll take it.
You were helping him out there.
Yeah, I was like, come on, man. You don't want to talk to the FBI.
It'll come to you.
Holy
So
fuck,
but at this point, you have, because people are probably thinking like, oh, you're on the lam, you know what I mean? But you had gotten some surgery done, right? Like, you look different than how you looked in Florida by this point.
I mean, I've had a nose job. You could do that. That's funny. You could put up the old picture.
Yeah, sure.
Or
yeah,
like
we'll
the
do
new
that.
picture.
Yeah, we should do that.
I have picture. I can show you. I can send some pictures. But yeah, I had a nose job. Like, my nose was much more bulbous. I only say that because that's what the surgeon said. He's like, I was like, I want to kind of define my nose. He goes, yeah, you want to get it, but he goes, yeah, it's bulbous. It's very bulbous. And I was thinking to myself, bulbous? Bulbous nose. Did you say? So I had that done. I had a what's called a mini facelift. I had liposuction. I had 2 hair grafts. So I had some work done. I mean,
you look significantly different.
I mean, I think I look. If you put the pictures up to each other, I mean, you can only look so different.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, if you look at my nose, you would say, oh yeah, no, his nose is way different. If you look at, definitely my features were different, and that's clear because I had actually gone into a title company one time. It was as Gary Sullivan. Same thing. Gary Sullivan had some very close calls. So I actually had gone into a title company once, and the lawyer came out. The lawyer came out, and he opened up the file and said, "Okay, go ahead and I don't know what's going on over there." He was like, sign here, here, sign here, and he started to slide the stuff, and he looked at me and he goes, "Can you hold on a second?" And I went, "Sure." He got up and he took the file, walked in the other room. And he actually had my wanted poster on the.
Oh my God!
Yeah, and he said he looked at it and he went. Now he was like, "Huh," and he opened up the file and he looked at the file and he was like, "Okay, well this guy's wanted out of Atlanta, Georgia. This guy has worked for the same company for 5 years, and he just moved here from Florida. So." This can't be the same guy.
Yeah.
Like, for some reason, the fact that it said identity theft underneath it, and it said all these other things, the fact is that for some reason he was like, yeah, that's not the same guy.
Wow.
Walked in and said, yeah, I'm sorry, Mr. Sullivan, go ahead and sign here and sign in. And I walked out of there with like a check for like a couple $100,000.
Holy shit.
So, yeah.
It's like it's back to your original point of people aren't assuming fraud.
Right.
It's almost like they're filling in the gaps of these things with their own stories of how you're good.
Right. Even though that was a clear case where he did. Like, he definitely thought it.
Yeah.
But he, and I'm sitting there and I'm well dressed and I'm not ready to leave. I'm not nervous. I'm like, yeah, go ahead. Take your time.
Yeah, yeah.
hanging out, whatever.
It's like they don't want to be seen as the person who's like doubting someone too. It's like that social etiquette of like you don't want to be the asshole. Like,
that would be that's an awkward situation. To be like,
were you accusing somebody?
Or could you imagine if he's like, oh, this is definitely the guy, and then he calls the cops, and the cops show up, and it's not the guy.
Yeah, like
you don't
he's gonna look like a clown.
Right, right. So so that was another. That was also Gary Sullivan. That was also where I got caught in the bank. I actually got arrested. I was handcuffed and brought downtown. But when I was handcuffed in the bank, and a investigator shows up and questions me because I had like 3. They found that I had 3 mortgages on this one house. I actually had like 5 or 6 of them, but they found 3.
Was this on Gary Sullivan?
Gary Sullivan. I told you he has some close calls.
Yeah.
So I mean,
retire that name.
we got to be running out, but
No. I mean, it's cool. I like. I think it's great. Yeah. I mean, there's just so much more to your story too. It's like we didn't even get to like you and Becky, how you got caught. Oh my God! Like I think the way you got caught is just so.
Yeah, I picture that scene in Goodfellas. Where it's, you know what I mean? like where it's going through that one day, and he's like, I had to drop off the guns here, then drop them off over there, and then I went over here, and then at the end he gets arrested, and they're holding a gun to his head. When I've heard this story, I was like, that's how we would shoot that. It would be like this montage.
I haven't heard it yet.
Yeah. You want to?
Well, the quick version is, first I got arrested, I got grabbed and questioned and handcuffed, and I convinced the detective that the guy from Wachovia, the head of Wachovia security, is absolutely wrong. I haven't done anything wrong. I'm Gary Sullivan. There's an issue at the bank. I don't know what these loan officers did, but I certainly didn't do anything. I work for a labor company. Here's my business card. Here's my driver's license.
Wow.
You can check. I give him my whole golly gee whiz face. Golly gee whiz officer. I wouldn't do anything wrong.
God.
I wouldn't know how to do this. This is what the loan officers, they need to talk to them because they set this whole thing up. They said it was perfectly fine. I didn't even think that. How is this illegal? I have a first mortgage, second mortgage, and a HELOC. It made perfect sense. And he's like, yeah, something's up. Something's up with the bank. I mean, he's definitely on my side.
He's on your side. Yeah.
Guy from Wachovia screaming. Then the guy from Wachovia really fucked up because he said, this guy's already questionable, but then he says, look at his ID. His ID starts with 000. It's a fake ID. But just so happens that this guy was in California. Apparently they don't start with 000, but in South Carolina they do.
Oh, wow.
So he says it's a real social security. I mean, it's a real ID issued by the DMV here. I ran him through NCIC. This is Gary Sullivan. And I went, now I'm not Gary Sullivan. I go, bro, come on, what are we doing here?
Yeah, get me out of these.
Yeah, I was like, come on. And he's like, I know, Gary, I know. Yeah, and so the guy's just losing it, right?
Wow.
So now he ruined his credibility by saying that.
Yeah.
It was like he was throwing everything out there to try and get him to, because he's saying, I don't even know what to, like, he's literally, I don't know what to arrest this guy for. Like, what do you say? Are you sure? Yes, look at his ID. And then when it's like, okay, now I know you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Everything that Mr. Sullivan is saying sounds right.
Yeah.
You're way off.
You sound out of line.
Right. Now you're saying that I know that's real. I checked it in the fucking in our DMV website, the state website. It's him. Now you're definitely off. I'm letting the guy go. So he brings me downtown. I fill out the police report, and I leave. Wow. I go straight to 2 more banks. I get out more money. 3rd bank, I walk in. The people like almost bump into each other trying to get to the phone, and I realize, okay, definitely fucked up. Definitely something wrong. Jump in my car and leave. I stop in the middle of the lobby. I'm like walking. I'm like, no.
Did they didn't?
And I leave. I was like,
you didn't give them anything.
No, because I realized that 2 of the women like look up and they boom, and they like bang into each other trying to get to the phone.
Nope.
And I'm like,
you felt it.
It's like the gut
good.
instinct of that.
You're good.
The manager.
Get in the car, drive off. When I drove off, one of the women ran out to like look at my tag number and stuff. Like they'd already had it.
Wow.
The cop got it, but they don't know. And I knew right then, definitely the right decision.
Yeah.
So I leave. Then Becky and we get into a huge argument. We go to Texas, Houston, rented a place. We get into this huge argument. I leave her with like $600,000 in cash. I take like $100,000. She had her argument was, you can take $100,000 and go make $1 million. I have to live off this money.
Yeah.
So I'm like, fine.
You've only known her a month, though, or
But
two.
meanwhile-
No, by this point, I've known her about a year. This has been a year, about a year and a half.
Okay.
But how it started was she was kind of like dead weight. You were kind of like brought her along.
Oh, I
with
brought
you.
her. Yeah, she begged and pleaded for me to come along. And, and then when she got caught, it was, he's a Don Juan. He made me fall in love with him, and he convinced me to commit mortgage fraud, and he convinced me this, and he convinced me to leave my son.
Everyone folds.
And it's like, I mean, I'm 5'6". Okay, I'm a tiny little fucker, and I'm not amazingly handsome, and I'm not that charismatic. And you've known each, and I'm gonna let you in on something else. The sex isn't that good. I'm not working with a whole lot. You're insane.
Yeah.
Like what it was is I had a bunch of money. You have no money.
Mm-hmm.
You thought this is my ticket.
Yeah.
You ditch everybody. You come with me. Suddenly you realize, you know what? It's not all that. I miss my family. I made a mistake. I'm upset. And she's bipolar.
Yeah.
Listen, I sent her to psychiatrists. I got her on Zoloft. I've got her take it. Then she would take it for 2 months, and she would be bearable.
Yeah.
And then she would get off the Zoloft, and suddenly she would go. 2 weeks later, she's fucking insane again, and I make her get back on the fucking Zoloft. I mean, it was
huge risk.
Yeah.
She's calling the police. I mean, she's getting the police called on me in the middle of the night.
That shit
This
killed
is
me.
still a movie now.
She's calling the cops on him for fucking domestic shit.
Well,
and-
she didn't call. She's just screaming at 2:00 in the morning. She's like, you fucking asshole. She's like. And I remember one time I was like, oh, I'm out of here. Somebody's definitely, like in our building, someone's calling the cops. This is a nice fucking place.
Yeah.
So I go to push her. She stands in the way, and I push her out. Like I literally push her, and I push her on her neck, right? Because, she, you're choking me. You tried to choke. I'm like,
I gotta go.
are you screaming that I'm trying to kill you at 2 a.m. in a building where the condos are selling for $1 million?
I'm Gary Sullivan. I'm not going to do that.
Have to go.
yeah.
So I take off, and we were living there as I was Michael Eckert, and she was God, who was she? She was Michelle somebody.
These names are
Because it was like
I
Michael. It was Michael and Michelle, and she wanted to put a little plaque on our door that said Eminem.
Oh, wow.
I mean, at this point, right then, it was like I should have left you.
Yeah, I was going to say that was probably the point. Like, live, laugh, love.
It was so bad. The fights were so bad, and the arguing and the bickering was so bad. I actually, one time I had taken off, and this happened like 3 different times. She begged me to come back. I came back, and like the last time I was like, I'm coming back, but tomorrow you're going to get an apartment. You're moving. You're getting your own fucking apartment. We're done. I'm dating someone else, and you're dating someone else. I don't want to date anyone else. I love you. I don't give a shit. You're dating someone else. I'm thinking if I can get her interested in someone else, she won't focus on me.
Start hiring
It's a
gigolos.
good call. Gigolo.
Yeah.
It was just one of those situations where she would go out with her friends and be hanging out, and she'd be like, she would say, God, there was this one guy, Steve, and he's kind of handsome. I mean, and so and so told me that he likes me. I'm like, you ought to go out with him. Hey, fuck you! You don't have to be so happy about it. It's like,
Oh, my God.
I'm trying to help you.
I mean, it was very generous.
Mortgage
for you to,
fraud was nothing compared to this
Yeah,
one.
I was
Yeah,
gonna
right.
say, I was gonna say the weight of that though would it have been easier by yourself? You think like if you had
It would have been way easier. by
Really?
myself.
It
Way
would have still
easier.
been going.
I would have been in my bed like thinking, oh fuck, like I need something to distract me right now.
Joe, you haven't even heard how he got caught. Like,
Oh,
how
yeah.
Oh,
the
listen.
women keep coming for him.
Listen, I ended up going to South Carolina. I almost get called by the U.S. Marshals at one point, but I go to South Carolina. So when I'm in South Carolina, did I ever say about the thing in New Orleans?
I don't think so.
Okay, so this is something I didn't even know this at the time. I didn't know this until I got the Freedom of Information Act on me. When I was in New Orleans, there's an artist by the name of Matthew Cox who had a gallery showing in the French Quarter. We were staying on Royale Street, which is right next to Bourbon Street. And so one street or like 2 blocks over, there was a gallery. Matthew Cox was having an art gallery the same time I was there. So the U.S. Marshals actually flew in,
Oh my God.
went to the gallery owner, showed him a picture of me, and said, "This is Matthew. Is this the same Matthew Cox that's having an art?" Because they knew I was an artist.
Oh,
I have a degree in
wow.
fine arts. So they thought I was stupid enough to use my own name
Yeah.
and become an artist and like on the run. So they show him the picture of the guy, and he's like, "I've known the guy for like 5 or 6 years. That's not him." He's like, "Okay." So then they leave. But we were there at the same time, staying
down the
whatever, a few
street.
blocks away.
Wow, how cosmic.
Right? That's
crazy.
They were after you, and that's like
Right.
showing how much they wanted you. It was worth the surgery, and it was worth everything,
One, they never saw me, but I didn't even know. I'm saying I didn't even know that till I got the document. What the Freedom of Information Act, and there was a U.S. Marshals report that talks all about how they flew down, the artist, the this, the that, and I was like,
the amount of money they put into trying to get you.
Oh my God, the resources.
Listen, when I was on the run, after I left Becky, I actually called the FBI agent thinking maybe I should turn myself in. Like I had called home and I talked to a friend, and they were like, turn yourself in, call the FBI, at least talk to them.
Yeah.
So I called the FBI officer, this one FBI officer, and I was talking to her. And she was like, so we talked, and I was like, okay, what about this? What about that? So we talked back and forth. She was a real pain in the ass. So we ended up getting into a little bit of an argument, and she's like, look, I can't make that deal. I can call the U.S. attorney. Let me call him, and I'll call you back. And I was like, nah. I said, I'll call you back. She goes, what's your phone number? And I go, and it was a cell phone like I had bought at a 7-Eleven.
Yeah.
So
Burner
like
phone.
it's like a Circle K type thing, right?
Yeah.
So you go and you buy a burner phone.
Burner phone, yeah.
But then I was sitting down at there was like a Subway, and so I ordered a sub and I called her. I'm working on my laptop and I'm making lists of things I have to do. Like, oh, you got to get this, you got to get this, you got to do this. So I'm talking to her. But I'm in the 7-Eleven or Circle, whatever. I'm in the convenience store talking to her. So I'm like, nah, you're probably triangulating this or something. I said, I'm going to shut my phone off after that. I'll call you back. And she goes, triangulating it? And she goes, get over yourself. You're not that important.
Oh, wow.
And I remember the way she said it. I remember thinking, yeah, bro, who do you think you are? You're not a fucking terrorist. No, they're not. Triangulate. Like, I don't know they're flying to New Orleans. I don't know any of this. I don't know
her conning you.
Right. And
and
I went, and I remember thinking, stick with your gut. And I went, no, I'll call you back in a couple hours. She goes, all right, whatever. And so I hang up the phone. Then I get the Freedom of Information Act. She immediately contacted the U.S. Marshals. U.S. Marshals immediately contacted someone in Baton Rouge. I don't know who this is. This is a lie. This is a
federal prison.
This is a
I don't know how your ringtones are out of this.
Well,
world.
I don't know how you hang up. Like,
I know.
this is only allows me to accept.
Yeah, you press
on the side.
button.
Yep. What, here?
Yep. Once to silence it, and then the second one
there you
hangs
go.
it up.
Whatever. So what she called them. They called the U.S. Marshals in Baton Rouge. They jumped in. 2 guys jumped in a car, and they head directly to where I was. I stayed there like another hour or so, working on it. Then finally, I was like, it's going to get dark soon. I have to get to North Carolina. So I get in my car. And then I was in Louisiana at the time. I was driving through Louisiana from Texas, where I just broke up with what's her name. So I'm going back to North Carolina to get my car. So I jump in my truck and I drive. I'm headed that way. And they showed up at the thing. I don't know how much far after. I mean, they may have passed me in the parking lot for all I know.
Wow.
But they actually, because they couldn't track the phone, but they did call T-Mobile and find out, you know what? We know where it was just sold.
Mm-hmm.
So they went straight there. So they walk into the place where I'm sitting.
Holy shit.
And I don't know if I passed or what, but I got in that truck and left. So that's another one, like little tiny thing that's
This
so
is like,
ridiculous.
I'm sorry, real quick. This is so much Catch Me If You Can, like Tom Hanks
Bro,
calling, Frank Abagnale. It's like,
I was
literally.
Look, when I go back to North Carolina, I go into a coffee shop. I order coffee, which is across the street from my apartment complex, because I had to get my car. I recovered my car, and there's 2 people from the apartment complex in the coffee shop staring at me. And so I get my coffee, and they get their coffee. The woman takes off. She leaves through the back, and I remember thinking something was wrong. You know what I thought was wrong? It was like the 5th, and my rent's due on the 1st, and I hadn't paid it. So I thought, is this like they're freaking out over my rent? I mean, what's
Yeah.
So, but I don't think. But what actually happened was they had just been questioned by the U.S. Marshals. So she runs back into the apartment complex. She's like, he's across the street at the Starbucks. So by the time they come running at me, I'm already in my car. The guy stayed there to watch me. He starts screaming, he's right here, he's right there. And I turn around and I look, and there's 2 fucking U.S. Marshals running at my car. And I'm already ready to go, so I just hit the gas and drive off. I mean, it sounds exciting, but I was already like, I'm about to leave. He starts screaming, and I'm like, what the fuck? Oh, shit. Boom, and and I drive off. I drive straight down the street about a mile or 2, and I see 3 or 4 homeless guys, like white homeless guys in their 30s. And I was like, oh, hell no. I turn around, pull in, jump out, grab my servant, and say, hey, you guys, my name's John. I work for the Salvation Army. I'm taking surveys because that's how I was interviewing homeless people to get their information so I could get driver's licenses and IDs and passports in their name. So I pull up literally a mile or so away.
You can't let
from
a good
it's an
30-year-old
opportunity.
white guy go.
Yeah.
Right.
Wait, but
Perfect.
a mile? Weren't you like they're gonna catch up to me or something?
Well, I mean, they can't see me now. They're on foot.
Yeah.
Like they're not. I'm taking left or right, left or right. I'm. They're not like right behind me. I pull into a parking lot. I get out of the car. Perfect.
Jeez.
Even if, let's say, all of a sudden, it really, in a way, it's better. What if 5 fucking cars pull up around the car? I'm 50 feet away, 60 feet away, hanging out with the homies.
Doing a survey.
Yeah, they're
I
putting
just
out
put that down, and I say, give me your cigarette.
Yeah, exactly. That's where I thought you were going. I was like, I thought you were going to, like, dirty yourself
Pretend
up
to
and
be.
sit
Yeah,
down.
I mean,
No, instead he's like, here's my next scam.
Yeah.
yeah, here's my next guy. And, as a matter of fact, I lived as one of those guys for a year and a half. His name was Marion. His name was it was Joseph Marion Carter Jr. and I went as Carter. So everybody called him Carter. I immediately got his stuff, drove to South Carolina, ordered all of his documents, ordered credit cards in his name. Went and got, so a week later, maybe 10 days later, had all of his documents. To get his birth certificate, I actually drove all the way back to South Carolina and went to South Carolina and got his his birth certificate.
Wow.
So I drive all. This is me just driving like
In the same car they saw you drive away.
same car, and my only driver's license is in a name that I know is wanted at this point.
Oh, fuck.
So I drive back. I get all of his information, and you know what's even funnier? When I first drove to Nashville, Tennessee, I was pulled into Nashville in my car, driving through Green Hills, which is like where all the movie stars, right? This guy happened to have like a house that happened to have like a duplex right next to it. Like looked like a house, but it's actually a duplex. I was driving through looking for an apartment complex. I had made a credit card. I mean a business card. I had gotten a phone, so I got a phone. I got a business card, and I've got a P.O. box. That's all I have. I don't have anything else. I'm driving, looking for an apartment complex, thinking like I can make a fake ID, and but at least I can go see the apartment. And I'm driving through, and this older guy, probably 60, 70 years old, is putting a sign, boom, that says for rent, like that. And I drove by and saw. I went, whoa, turned around, pulled in, got out. I'm driving my car's worth 50, 60 grand. I mean, it's a brand new. It's an Infiniti G35, which now they got like 65 or something like that. It was a brand new one.
Yeah.
Get out, walk up. I said, hey, my name's Carter. I said, my name's Joseph Carter. I said, is this place for rent? Yes, it is. So, oh, great. Let's take a look. We walk up. We take a look. We come back. I say, how much? He says, this much. And I said, how much is a deposit? And he goes, oh, the deposit's this much. I said, well, do you need to pull my credit? I said, my credit's kind of, I don't really have any credit. I said, I'm now trying to reestablish credit. I just moved here, but, and he goes, looked at my car, and he goes, you look like an honest man. He said, give me the deposit in the first month. He said, I'll give you the keys right now. I said,
Thanks.
wow. And I remember
Joseph,
thinking,
you
I'm
look honest.
gonna like Tennessee.
Yeah.
Very trusting.
I don't know how they could catch you. Is the crazy part. I'm like thinking of all
That's
these
what you must have
IDs
been
just
thinking.
popping up out of different states, and I'm like, how can?
Well, here's how. So I drive that car back to North Carolina. I take a plane back to Nashville. Within about less than 2 weeks, I have a driver's license in Carter's name, social security card, his birth certificate. I've already ordered my passport. I have an apartment. I have furniture on its way, or I already have furniture. I have the electric. Within like 10 days, I'm a completely new identity.
Wow.
I almost failed the driving test in Joseph Carter's name. I remember I missed like 3 in a row, and I was like, what the fuck?
I'm not going to get this.
Oh, I was so shocked. I remember going up to the thing, and when I passed it, I walked up to the counter, and I looked at the woman, I go, I almost failed the driving test. And she goes, I know. Whoa. I know. I mean, keep in mind, I'm completely, I'm not even who I am, but I'm fucking with these people. I'm like, bro, that's crazy,
wow,
right?
I'm so
She's
nervous.
I know, right?
First driving test.
That's crazy. I almost failed that. And I'm not even Joseph Carter. So she gives me my driver's license, and and I immediately turn around and go buy a car. remember I went straight to,
Wow.
is AutoNation still around?
Oh yeah, I remember AutoNation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of those where it's like, that's the price, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
We're not negotiating. It's $17,000.
Yeah.
So I walked in and I said, listen, I've been on my job 5 years. I have no credit. I said, how much money do I have to put down to get financing? Can you provide a W-2? Or can you provide a pay stub? I said, I got a pay stub on me right now. Pulled it out. I said, you can call, verify it. I said, gave him my business card. I said, how much? He goes, we happen to have a first-time buyers program. He goes, if you got nothing on your credit, we got a first-time buyers program. You got to put down 20%. We cannot finance more than $20,000. I said, find me an SUV that fits that criteria, and I'll take it right now. Walked over, found one. He goes, okay, you want to drive it? I said, I want to get financing. I said, I'm sure it drives great. Let's go. Went in, boom, boom, boom. Sat there, and the guy was like, he ran it like an hour later. He came back. He said, yeah, you got it, bro. I said, great. Let's go. Have me sign the papers. Let's get going. Signed everything. So we're there like literally within 2 weeks. I've got everything.
Everything's new.
Yeah.
Everything.
No remnants of your old life.
And the car that they find it in long-term parking in North Carolina with brochures from from Italy, and they've got like lira and stuff in there, thrown on the thing, So it's like I'm like
the Infinity or the
the Infinity.
Okay, yeah.
So it's like
Good
then
idea.
in the newspaper they're like, Cox is believed to be in Italy. Or, Cox is believed.
Beautiful.
So
Beautiful.
So yeah, I go back. So then I buy a bunch of houses as Joseph Carter. I buy them, satisfy some loans, refinance the houses, right? Or I don't even satisfy those loans. I actually bought the houses for like $60,000, recorded the value at like 200 and 190, right?
Wow.
Refinance them, pull out like $100,000 on each house. So now I've got a nice nest egg. I got $400,000 or $500,000 again. So now I got a little nest egg.
And Becky's not with you?
Becky's gone.
Oh, okay.
Becky's on her own.
Okay.
We're done with Becky.
Get out of here, Becky.
Done.
Forget Becky.
Yeah. Becky's actually a gangster. Becky got caught a year later, and when she got caught, they said she denied it was her the entire time. They said it took us about an hour. The Secret Service said it took us an hour to get her all the way into the Secret Service headquarters, and they said she was saying, "I'm suing you guys. You're gonna lose your job.
Oh, damn.
You don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
You fucked up."
She learned
They said,
from you.
Yeah,
She's like, they said they're sitting there going, "We know it's you," until finally they said, and literally when they grabbed her hand and said, "Put it on the scanner," she goes, "All right, my name's Rebecca Howard."
Oh, man.
Damn.
She folded.
She learned from the best.
I mean, what
She
the hell's she gonna do? I was
Yeah.
like, listen, when they grabbed me and said, "Are you Matthew Cox?" I said, "Yeah, you got me."
That was in Tennessee?
Immediately. Yeah, I was in Tennessee, and I was running a scam, and I found out that I'd been there like a year and a half. I started dating this chick named Amanda.
My sister's name.
She was amazing, bro.
My sister? No, I'm just kidding.
Give me some time.
Wait till you hear the story before you start calling her your sister.
Yeah, okay.
So I meet Amanda, and we start dating, and we move in together, and I find out that like Fortune magazine had come out with an big article on me, and I'd been in Bloomberg Business Week a couple times, and so there's all these articles are coming out, but I'm not really worried about that, you know what I mean? Like I'm not like some local papers are coming out with stuff and different, but never the state I'm in, like nothing here, nothing in Nashville because I relocated.
Yeah.
So you got in some national papers, some like the Chicago Tribune and stuff, they're running, so but nothing. I'm good. So I'm okay, and I'm there like a year and a half, and Amanda and I are living together, and we start sleeping with this other chick named Trina, right? Like I'd actually dated Trina like one time and then never talked to her again. And then Amanda had gone on a website, and she was a girl seeking girl. So she actually finds her, and while she's looking, she's like, "What about her? Well, hey, would you want to? What do you think? And I'm like,
Been there.
I was like, I'll do it out of love for you. I'm not interested.
Yeah, that's great.
So, she ends up talking to her, and then they end up meeting. And what was so funny is when she showed me the picture, I was like, I dated her. She said, "No, you did." I said, "I swear to." I said, "Check her pictures. She's got a picture. She drives a Corvette. I start naming off. She's got pictures of her on. I said, jogging. She's done marathons. She's like, holy shit. There's pictures of her jogging. There's pictures of her with this. She's got like a 1975 Corvette or something. I'm like, she's like, "Oh my God, what happened?" I'm like, "Well, we went out." And she's like, "Well, what happened?" I'm like, I don't know. She just bugged me. It's just she had that. I typically like a Southern drawl, but I mean, hers was just over the top, and it was almost kind of like, it was just too much, and it was like, I wasn't feeling it.
Yeah.
And she was like, so what happened? I'm like, what do you mean what happened? I never talked to her again. I just fucking ditched her. I got in the car and left. And
Change your identity?
Yeah. I remember she sent me a thing saying, wow, you didn't even try and kiss me goodbye. It must have been a really bad date. And I never answered. Like, I was just like,
ooh, that
nothing.
stings.
Done.
Poor Trina.
But at that point, I was on so many dating websites. You go on 3 or 4 dating websites I'm like 35 then. So I'm 35 on like 4 different dating websites. Flipping houses. It's very obvious, like, you've got a ton of money and, avidly working out. So it's every other day it's some other girl. I mean, it's so bad that my phone's ringing. I'm answering the phone. I'm like, yeah, what's up? And some girl's like, hey, Carter, what's going on? I haven't heard from you. I was just wondering if everything's going. Oh, yeah, I've been meaning to call. And I'm sitting there like, what the fuck is this? And like 2 minutes in the conversation, they're like, you don't have a clue who this is. And I'm like, fuck, I'm sorry. You asshole. I'm like,
I don't know. Your Don Juan story is kind
Yeah.
of changing
it's
now.
horrible. Oh, it's horrible. Yeah, so what happens is, anyway, so Amanda and I are messing with this chick, and we find out that Dateline's coming out. So Dateline was going to do a 1-hour special.
Oh, wow.
And I realized that it's Dateline. I mean, back then Dateline was huge. I mean, there wasn't like, it wasn't really like there was YouTube, but it was like in its infancy.
People watch TV.
People watched television back then.
And those clips are still, the pedophile clips are still classic clips.
Right. Well, I wasn't going to be on that show.
Oh, no.
I didn't like that you bought that show. Although I've met some of the guys that he caught.
Wow.
So, yeah, they were going to do an episode on Dateline, and I was like, fuck. Like, there's no way. I don't have a huge amount of interaction with people, but I have enough of interaction that out of the 50 people that see you on a regular weekly basis, one of them is going to see my face.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to recognize me. It's over. So I was like, I have to leave. So we started researching, and it turns out that that in Australia, if you showed up at that time with like a couple $100,000 and a business plan, they would let you be a permanent resident alien, and they did not run your fingerprints. Now you could become a citizen, but they wanted to run fingerprints through like the FBI, or like do a criminal background search in your country. So I was like, okay.
You said Australia, right?
Australia.
Yeah, wow.
So I was like, okay, so I can go there with a passport as Walter Holcomb or Michael Morgan or whatever the guy's name that I had, right? I can go there as that person who has no criminal history, and as provided they don't ask to run my prints, they're going to give me a driver's license. I can stay there permanently. I can't vote. I can't take a job, but you're allowed to open a business. So I'm going to show up there with a few million. Wow. So if I show up with a couple $1 million and a business plan, I'm staying. I can go there, buy 5 or 6 houses, 10 houses. I can go buy 30 jet skis.
Yeah.
And have some kid watch the jet skis all day while I goof off. It doesn't matter. I can buy houses, fix them up, rent them, do whatever I want. As long as I don't take a job, I can stay. So that was the plan. And so one of the things we started doing was I started refinancing all of these properties. So I'm pulling out like $2-3 million. Well, while I'm doing that, I'm asking guys to cash checks. There's no Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Like there's no, there are ways to launder money, but I didn't know how to do that in that way. What I realized was at some point, if you pull it all together in cash and put it into an unrelated account, you're going to be okay. So I'm pulling out the cash, and while I'm pulling out the cash, we're asking guys to cash checks. Can you cash a check for $30,000? Can you cash? Here's 3 checks. One's for 7, one's for 8, one's for 5. Can you cash those in the next couple of days? Give me the cash. I'll give you 10%. Okay, cool. All my buddies are doing it, right? Guys that basically work for me.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that we were going to have Trina cash like $30,000 in. And so Amanda asks her to cash $30,000, and at that point, I don't know this. Like I just know that Amanda had written me a letter later that said Trina's the one that turned you in. She found out who you were, and she turned you in. So what happened is I assume when she asked her to cash the checks, it sparked a conversation, and she said, "Well, this is who he is, and he's leaving, and I'm leaving with him." And she liked Amanda. Amanda had a son. Trina had never been married. When I first met Trina, like Trina had gone to the women seeking guys section of like Match.com because she wanted to get pregnant. So when she met me, she was really looking for some guy to get her pregnant and then get rid of him. Like, I'll take you home. I'll let you, nail me for long enough till I'm pregnant, and then I'll break it off, and then I've got a baby. Well, we went on one date. I wasn't interested. Then she said that after that, it kind of died down. Keep in mind, we've been hanging out for like 3, 4, 5 months, maybe 6 months. She's coming over a couple times, once a week, twice a week.
Wow.
When we left, we went on vacation for like 2 weeks. We left Amanda's son with Trina. She took care of him for 2 weeks. I mean, we were all
You
close.
trusted her, yeah.
Yeah, totally trusted her. And then Amanda said, hey, need to cash these checks. He's leaving, and I'm leaving with him. And so she's thinking,
this is over.
And she's heartbroken.
right.
That's what I'm saying.
But if I get rid of him, I can keep her and the kid.
Oh, whoa. Damn.
So,
Like just as a friend, or just,
well, I mean, look, she's sleeping with Amanda. She's
Yeah.
sleeping with
She's
me
still-
and Amanda, and
She
so
likes
she
Amanda.
clearly likes Amanda.
Yeah.
I mean, I like to think she was fond of me, but she was also a lesbian.
yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
So she had been a lesbian. Like she had dated guys in high school, and then she'd been a lesbian, and now she was like older. She was like 29 years old.
You were expendable to her,
Yeah,
basically.
absolutely.
Oh,
So
my.
so what happens is she calls the Secret Service. She negotiates a $10,000 reward.
That's puny.
Right. I always like to say, if she could have walked in and said, look, I want $500,000, I would have said, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then you're
Absolutely.
out of it,
do it.
Yeah. I mean, give me a 10-minute. I'm going to give you the money, and then you can still call. You might as well call, because guess what? I'm going to be gone.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
but whatever. I'd have given her every penny for just a 10-minute head start.
I mean, look what you did with
Yeah.
Becky. You gave her like $500,000
$600,000.
or
right?
$600,000 just for her to be off your back.
We left $700,000 in a bank in the one in South Carolina.
Wow.
Remember when I got caught?
Yeah.
I left $700,000 in.
Wow.
Damn, that hurts.
I know it's a big.
So, but man, listen, when you're in that position and they got the cuffs on you, and listen, you're ready to do anything.
To get.
So, you take it all. Look, I can get more money.
Yeah.
Money is not an issue.
Time.
Right.
Yeah.
You can't get back time. I love that in the Wall Street too. The Money Never Sleeps, where he's like, that's the only real commodity is time.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the only thing you really can spend.
So they ended up getting some time from you, though.
Yeah, they grabbed me. They gave me 26 years. While I was incarcerated, I got my sentence reduced twice. Once 7 years, once by 5 years. So went down to like whatever that comes to, 15 years and change. So I ended up doing 12 and a half years. Got out, went into a halfway house, and I've been out about 18 months.
Oh, it's really not that long.
Yeah.
July of not last year, July the year before that.
Damn.
So what
He's
is it?
already
It's more
making
than
videos.
18,
and-
19, what is it now?
Yeah.
About 19, 20 months. 20 months.
Wow,
20 months,
man.
yeah.
Well, in July, it'll be 2 years. This
Yeah.
July. So what is it now? It's February. Yeah.
Wow.
Fucking.
Yeah, that's so.
12 years is like a long time.
I
Like,
know.
you know what I mean?
It
It
is.
is,
It's
but
a long time.
honestly, it's the first 10 years is the hardest. The last 2 years,
The first 10 years,
it was fun.
he was coasting
Does
after
it
that.
feel like it balanced out? Because like you lived the high life. I mean,
That's
honestly,
what I was wondering. The karma of all this. Like, does it feel like that chapter of your life is balanced now that you did your time?
You know what's funny? What most people ask me is, do you have any regrets? And it's like, you know, your fucking mind?
Yeah.
Of course I have fucking regrets. What are you talking about? It's 12 and a half fucking years. Of course I have.
Yeah.
You know, my son doesn't talk to me. Well, he does talk to me. He sends me mean text messages. He and we have mean text arguments. We've been arguing for a month and a half. And, and I'm like, you're a mean little fucker, aren't you? And he comes back, he's like, yeah, well, I don't need you. And I was just vicious little back and forth. So, I mean, I got a son that doesn't talk to me. My father died while I was incarcerated. My mother had a stroke, she's 91. I see her. Basically, the only good thing is, I found out basically that almost every person that I knew out there that I thought was a friend wasn't a friend. I used to always hear that there was a saying that said, if you can look back, if you get to the end of your life and you can look back and you say you have like 3,
3 to 5, like enough on your hand to count.
right,
good friends.
solid, really good friends, you should count yourself lucky.
Yeah.
I didn't have any. Like everybody that was involved with me had cooperated. Not that because it is an indicator, but in general, it was that the guys that weren't even involved, that we were buddies. I now kind of look back and realize we were buddies because I always paid for dinner. I
Yeah.
always paid for the vacations. I always paid for everything. I always paid, and it was, the joke was, bro, no, all this. Bro, it's Bank of America's money. Relax. It's not a big deal.
Yeah,
So
right.
they're
Yeah.
It's not like you weren't working for it,
right.
though.
Yeah.
Well,
Yes,
I mean, listen, the thing is, was it work? It was work, but you know what? It wasn't balanced. Like there's no way for that amount of work I could make that money.
Yeah.
No
I'm not
way.
working.
700,000.
I'm not working as hard as I worked as an insurance adjuster when I was an insurance adjuster. I'm not working as hard as half as hard as I work right now. So does it balance out? I would say balance out might be like regrets. Absolutely, balancing out. That's probably. Maybe it balances. I don't know.
Are you nervous that it's like still coming for you though? Like, is there a part of you that's like, oh man, or do you feel like you're able to look at it and be like, all right,
I feel like I'm in a good place. So I think if that's how, I'm good. I'm good. Like I don't think there is an impending doom on the horizon. Like I feel like I'm in a good place where I try and, try and behave well, try and do good things, try and be humble, which is extremely difficult for me. I mean, I'm an extreme narcissist. I'm arrogant. Remaining humble and doing the right thing and saying the right and being, that's difficult for me. Because I mean, at heart, I typically say things before I think. Not that like if it's a scam when it's calculated and it's planned out and it's thought out, that's different. As opposed to just talking to somebody and saying, "Damn, bro, you're fucking gaining weight, man. What's up with and not thinking they might be upset about that. You know what I'm saying? Not like I just
Unfiltered.
right.
Yeah.
Abrasive. I'm extremely abrasive, and I don't even necessarily mean anything by it. I'm just not taking your feelings into consideration.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing like when we started this. It was like, you're not going to offend me. Like if you were to say, well, you're kind of a fucking scumbag, bro. You don't know the half of it, brother.
I feel like the lightness that you bring, like telling these incredible stories, like I feel like maybe when you're in them, there was some sort of weight as like carrying what your past, like while you're going forward. But now that you've like been able to express it, I feel like a little lightness, I guess, from it, where it's like, well, you did your time,
his heart's pumping out of his chest right now, Joey. What are you talking about?
I don't have those moments anymore. I don't feel like even when I was on the run, I never really 99% of the time I didn't feel like I was being pursued, like I was.
Oh, that's
wasn't
good.
concerned about it. I'm not. You know how many traffic tickets I got? You know how many? Like I was always
Under assumed identities.
Yeah.
So,
Yes, I know.
but then, and I think you have a way of like understanding that like the people that you stole their identity, you feel like it all works out for them in the end. Is there a place where the books get cleared, where they're like, all right, he stole this guy's identity. Like, did you have to go through and be like, I have this guy's identity, so their records could get swiped clean, kind of thing? Like, what happens to the victims who are like, oh yeah, I'll give you my social security number for $20?
You mean the homeless guy?
Yeah.
So you think the homeless guy needs his identity? The homeless guy doesn't even have credit. He has no idea it's been stolen.
That's why he's the perfect target.
He's perfect. He's like
he's not really using it.
Yeah, he's a shill.
No.
So you don't think that like one of these guys got a job and then like
Are you serious? If you're
You've been watching too much Oprah.
If you're 34 or 35 years old and you're homeless, it's over. I literally had conversations with the guys where and one of the questions was like, do you feel in the next year you will be gainfully employed? And you know what they would do? And this was over and over again. I had one guy look around and he goes, nah, this is it for me. I mean, he's missing half the fucking teeth in his head.
Yeah.
He's got sores on his body. Looks like he hasn't showered in weeks. He's filthy. He's burned from the sun. He looks just horrible. And I mean, you're sitting there looking, and the fact is, if his head got right now, he couldn't get a job.
Yeah.
They have mental illnesses. They have alcohol problems. They have drug problems. They have major issues. I mean, I remember I talked to this one guy I surveyed, but I felt horrible for this guy. He'd been run over by a car. And I don't mean run over where it's like, yeah, I was hit by a car and now I have a little limp. No, like they reattached my arm, my hand, my leg. He's doing the whole thing. He's got a scar down his his thing. He had to take medication because his brain or his skull had been cracked, and when it was re-put together, it didn't heal right. So he actually had swelling in his face. So he had to take medication. He was fucking done.
And he's homeless.
Yeah, we're not there for him.
Fuck.
Right. So that guy's just never getting back on his feet.
Yeah.
You know, I
Yeah.
mean, you can't
it
hear me?
was-
Can
No,
you hear me?
I fixed it.
It was also incredible, like listening. Like it seemed like you were in the long form of this project, so to speak. But it was like a long form thing. You were going to go to Australia, and like if you hadn't been turned in, it's like
There was a plan.
Yeah.
There was a half-ass plan towards the very end when I realized it was a quickly thrown together.
Okay.
It was not like, ultimately this is it was like where I was in Nashville, I was basically kind of going to stay in Nashville and just kind of do a development, and I had enough money and I was super comfortable and we were comfortable and happy and everything was okay, but then Dateline comes out and then you're like, whoa.
Yeah, you
Like
must have.
I'm hoping this dies down.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not.
Yeah, you must have had so many moments where you're just like kind of going about la-di-da, like I'm just, not even thinking that you're a criminal. It's just like that's how you make money. And then all of a sudden, like your reality bursts and you're like, oh, wait.
Like when I went to the dentist we were in the dentist office and Amanda was looking through the magazines and she was looking through Bloomberg Business Week and it's a quarter-size picture of me and she's like, and it says like sharks in the housing pool. And she went, that's why I named my book Shark in the Housing Pool. The article was called Sharks in the Housing Pool. And she looked and she was like,
Oh,
she
man.
goes, come over here. And I was like, what's up? I get up, I walk over, and we're in the lobby, right? And she's like, and I was like, I mean, just the heat. Wow.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Oh,
she's like, what is going on? What's happening? I'm like, holy shit, man. And I'm thinking, but who knows? I'm not hanging out with business executives. I mean, I'm not, what are the chances that anybody's going to see that? It's business. It's Bloomberg's Business Week in a dentist office. I mean, I'm not.
you're in Nashville.
Yeah, I'm in Nashville.
no one's smart enough to read that.
No,
I'm
it's just
kidding.
like
Nobody
the
that knows
vibe there.
me. Like I barely know anybody in that. And the people that I did come into contact with are construction workers.
Mm-hmm.
They're fixing up houses. Like, look, I've always fixed up houses. Like, I mean, I'd have $500,000 or $1 million in the bank, and I'm still flipping a house.
Yeah.
It's like I was just like, what do you do? It's like, well, I don't have to have a job. I can work out an hour and a half in the morning. I can go to the mall. I can buy some socks. I can get my teeth whitened. I can. Okay, what are you gonna do the rest of your fucking week? Fuck.
Yeah.
I can date.
Yeah.
That gets old. I can. What can I do? I can wash my car for the second time this week. I can watch some TV. I could flip a house.
Yeah.
That would be fun. I get to meet the contractors. I get to, no, we're going to fix the floor. We're going to do this. Now, let's see if I can get the guy to level the house up. I can, the more fucked up the house, the better.
Yeah.
Why? Because it'll take longer.
Yeah.
And it'll be more fun, more guys.
Like a real flip though. You're talking about like really
Legitimate.
Yeah, legitimate.
Yeah. Like fix a house up.
Yeah.
Buy it, renovate it. So I'm doing that just to have something to do.
Mm-hmm.
So, but those guys are not reading Bloomberg Business.
No.
Yeah, it's so funny because I think of this, the way you're talking about being on the phone all day. It's like once you get a big influx of cash, you actually can just relax or do the things that you want to do. But you go into federal prison for 12 years, and you're meeting a bunch of other people who have crazy stories. And I want to talk to you a little bit about this. Like you start writing their stories, but is there part of you that like goes and meets other people who've maybe done similar crimes that makes you feel like the system's kind of been set up to be taken advantage of?
There's not a lot of guys like I only met one other person that did something similar to what I did. Mm-hmm. Now, there were other guys that committed white-collar crimes or ran scams. A lot of guys that end up in prison or end up doing white-collar crimes are like, they're very, I'm going to say minor. Like they lied. Maybe it was millions of dollars, but it was in the course of doing like their regular business for some reason. I knew a guy one time who had gotten. Is that me? That shouldn't. I put it on. I thought I put it on silent. I did put it on silent.
Still busting through.
Yeah.
Triangulation.
Yeah, they're triangulating.
So it says. Now it's on
Now
silent
there you go.
mode. No. No, silent mode. Okay. Yeah, I guess I didn't have it on. So like I met a guy one time that used to he owned a trucking company, and he used to deliver stuff for Johnson & Johnson. Well, once he'd been doing it like a year or two. And one time they had delivered some pallets or something, and he put the wrong amount of pallets on. Like instead of having 2 pallets, he put like 4 pallets or something. He goes, and they paid me for 4 pallets. Like I wrote it down, I did it, and I realized later when I got the check, I was like, that's crazy. He's like, and I realized I'd made a mistake. I was like, they paid me for, that's not what. And I looked at it and I was like, oh gosh. Or he said, because he'd been doing it for so long, he said there's like a trial period and then they're just paying you.
Right.
Yeah.
He said, so I waited, and then the next time he did it, he said, I put 6 pallets down when it was 2. He said, they paid me. He said, and then I did it again. And then I started realizing that there were some pallets, I guess the deliveries, they would have 2 pallets, and he would bill for both pallets when really both the pallets were supposed to be dropped off. So it's supposed to be one delivery charge, but there were 2 pallets for one place. So he started charging for every time he got, that's what had happened. The deliveries were the same place, so he had double billed by accident. Oh, I shouldn't have done that. It wasn't. They went to the same place, and then they paid him. So he started doing that. So he said, I started really doing it. Then he went out. He said, I was making so much money at it that I bought a couple more trucks. So he started buying 2 more trucks. He said, now I'm really doing it. He did it for something like $3.5 million over the course of like 4 years or 5 years, something like that. Wow. But it was in the course of his regular business, did it in his own name, and just thought that they wouldn't miss it and it wasn't a big deal. And well, eventually, obviously, it caught up with him, and he went to jail. But like he's not a con man.
Yeah.
Does it make sense?
It does.
He's not running a scam. He's running a scam, but he's not. He didn't go into it. Like to me, it's like Bernie Madoff. Towards the, is he a scumbag? Is he kind of a con man? Is he? Yeah, but he didn't enter into it. It evolved, and he ran with it. A con man, to me, is a guy that goes in from the get-go and says, I'm going to set up this scheme, and it's going to be a Ponzi scheme, and I'm going to run it for 2 years. And it's not in his name. He has a long-term plan. He has an exit strategy. And here's how I'm not going to get caught. Like, he's got the whole thing. These guys that do it, and they start just... Yeah. Then next thing you know, it's like, I lost a bunch of money. Okay, I'm not going to say anything. I'll just change the thing, and then I'll make up for it. Well, the next month you don't. And maybe you make up a little bit. Then you have another down. Then you start getting desperate because you're trying to make up for it. So then you bet really hard and think, if this works, I'll get all the money back and I'll be fine. And it doesn't. Yeah. Right. Now you don't even have enough principal to continue to invest. And now you're just taking in new funds to pay out the old customers. And now you've got a full-blown Ponzi scheme going. And all you can think of is how fucked you are. But the truth is, if you don't keep it going, then you go to federal prison. Not realizing you're really going to federal prison. You're just either going for 20 years in 10 years from now, or you're going for 2 years right now.
Right.
You should go for 2 right now.
Yeah.
But you don't. You go for, like in Madoff's case, you go for 150 years. But yeah, you're doomed. So I mean, those aren't like, to me, that, like, I guess Benny Mayer, he's kind of a con man, but it didn't enter it as a con man.
Yeah. You put your life and subsequent lives as well, like on the line, going through it. Like you went through.
I've met a couple of guys. Like I really have met very few guys that actually were using different names. Yeah. Knew it was a scam, set it up as a scam, had an exit strategy. Mm-hmm. Like I've only met a few, 2 or 3, honestly.
Is one of your regrets not spending as much time thinking about the exit strategy?
Well, my exit strategy was just blend back into society. You'll be okay. You get an ID get a valid driver's license and everything for somebody that's not using it, and continue that. And like, listen, if you're some homeless guy, he's going to die decades before me. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. So he's going to die, and granted, they're going to know he's dead because when he dies, they're going to claim Social Security for his Social Security death benefit to go to the. That's how it works. Like you die, and when you go to your family doesn't notify Social Security. If you die right now, when you go to the funeral home, one of the many documents you sign, your family signs so that they can collect the $300 or $450 that Social Security will give them to bury you. Doesn't cover it, but it's a little bit. And that's how Social Security knows. Boom, we got a funeral home, said the guy's dead, here's his death certificate. Sorry, she's dead. Now they know. So is that going to happen at some point for this guy? Yeah, it probably is. But if I continue to pay, but the IRS doesn't, and Social Security don't know what's going on. Like they're not communicating.
Yeah.
So if I continue to pay 15, 20 years from now, or somehow or another at some point that catches up to you, then you can always say, wasn't me. I'm Joseph
alive.
Carter.
Yeah.
I've been alive.
Yeah.
I have driver's licenses, passports. I own real estate. I pay my taxes.
Yeah.
Clearly, the funeral home made a mistake.
Yeah.
I'm not dead.
Yeah.
They'll go, somebody
He
claimed
must have
it.
stolen my identity.
Right.
Yeah.
Something happened. Or for all you know, the funeral home goes under. How long now? It's 20 years old records.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I'm good.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
And I also had a plan to kind of like slowly try and alter. I was trying to figure out how to alter it to the point where it's a new person.
Yeah.
Like couple it with the kids' social security numbers, go back to Social Security, try and get them to change the date of birth by providing a different thing. I trying desperately to try and figure that out. But, my extra strategy was just kind of blend in and you'll be all right. And eventually it won't catch up with you. I mean, it might have been partially delusional, but whatever.
I picture like that come to Jesus moment. You have a baby, a daughter or son, and you're looking, you're like, but you're Carter holding your baby instead of
Amanda at one point, she goes, we were sitting there talking and she goes, do you want to get married? And I went, sure. And she goes, really? And I went, sure. And she goes, as Joseph Carter. And I went, yeah.
Oh yeah.
She goes, I said, would it matter if it was Matthew Cox? Would it really matter? She's like, Jesus. I mean,
wow.
what does it matter?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter whose name I marry you in. It's irrelevant. None of that applies to me.
Yeah.
All those rules don't apply.
Wow. Yeah. I love it. I think I think what I love the most about all of this is the way you were living your life during it is so what we would do. For the moment, live it up. Cars, houses, fucking threesomes, goddamn vacations, you know what I mean?
Basically
Like
your life now.
it's basically our life now, but we don't have to scam.
Yeah.
Luckily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like, how does it feel being out? Like, how does it feel? Like, you did 12 years. How did that feel? How do you feel now?
I feel better now. Toward the end, as I was going to be getting out, I started feeling extremely anxious, right?
Yeah.
Like very uncomfortable. Like I didn't want to get out. Like I did, but I didn't. And I was concerned, like, how am I gonna feed myself? Like, how am I going to pay my bills? Like, is that even going to be possible? Like, what's going to happen? Like, how, am I going to be able to tell people that? What are they going to say? Like, I understood there was something called YouTube, but I mean, I don't ever recall it being on YouTube. It was not really a thing when I got in. I didn't know what a podcast was. Someone had to explain to me what a podcast was.
Yeah.
And I would remember they were explaining, and I kept saying, like a radio show. And they were like, no, kind of.
Yeah.
You don't understand. It's you can do this, and they pay for subscriptions. Like, well, how do they know to pay for subscription? Well, I don't understand.
Yeah,
They're like, I'm like, so it's not on TV? There's like, nobody watches TV, bro. And I'm like, so they're explaining, and I'm like, true crime podcast. I totally didn't even know that was a thing. That's why I contacted Danny.
Right.
Because I wanted to figure out, how do I make one of these? Can you answer? And Danny talks to me like I know exactly what he's talking about. Oh, bro, you just put it on such and such and this and this, and you download it and this and this and this, and it's not a big deal. And you could do it. It's totally fine. You're an asshole. I mean, because I don't know any of that.
Yeah,
and the fact that you're not taking my lack of understanding into perspective really bothers me. And he's, so he doesn't do that. And a lot of millennials do that. They just expect.
They think you know.
That you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Oh, well, obviously you do this. You mean, like a fax machine. Because when I was we had fax machines.
Yeah, yeah.
And they're like, oh, well, bro, yeah, no. Or they say
Everything changed.
scanner, and I'm like, okay, so where do I go to get the scanner? And they're like, it's just on your fucking phone.
Yeah.
You can take a picture of it.
No, it's so
now.
funny. You were
Yeah.
talking to Danny, and you were saying something to the effect of like, or someone, and you were the person who turned you on to Danny's podcast. You're like, oh, I need to get a new car because the radio doesn't work. And it's just because you didn't know how to like have the music turn on because the car.
No, I didn't want a new. I bought a used car, but I was like, it's the car's good. I go, but the radio doesn't work. And I said, so I got to get a new radio. And he was like, pushed a button, and the thing slid out.
Yeah.
And he goes, boop, and touched it, and it came on. He goes, man, we got to get you updated.
Yeah.
I was like, he's the same guy that I was like, hey, I got this thing. This guy emailed me. I have to print this. So how do I print this? Like he sent it to me. How do I send it? And he goes, oh, send it. Okay, send it to me. Okay. He goes, dude, okay, cool. All right. It printed. I'm like,
what? I know.
What do you mean? He goes, I printed it. I go, no, seriously, bro. I walk over there and I go, are you fucking with me? Because they would fuck with me all the time.
Yeah.
And sure enough, he printed. How did you print it? He's like, it's all connected to the Wi-Fi. What?
Like, what?
Like I've heard of Wi-Fi. I understand the basic concept.
Yeah.
I'm still in the halfway house. I've been out like 2 weeks. I don't really
shit.
know what Wi-Fi is.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's magic, apparently.
Wow.
It is.
There's no cord.
You hit the ground running, man. I feel like, well, if you haven't seen, people check out your appearances on Concrete, our incredible, legendary podcasts. Amazing. We're going on that podcast tomorrow. And,
check out your Instagram. Any other links we'll put to the True Crime podcast below. And
I think we're going to be doing a lot of work together in various mediums. So this was really cool intro, like amazing story, amazing.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I was living the story. My heart was going so fast.
I know, man.
When you like went a mile away and you turned to the homeless people, I'm like, my heart was actually racing.
Yeah.
I'm like, how did you?
Totally.
That's funny.
Yeah,
That's funny.
hype up your art podcast.
Yeah. What's your art?
I mean, people only
Or,
watch about 80%
Instagram.
of these things. So by now nobody's watching. Basically it's
Humor them.
It's Cox Pop Art. So I got an Instagram Cox Pop Art, and I've got a YouTube channel Cox Pop Art.
Cool.
And I have my channel. It's called Matt Cox Inside True Crime.
And you do a podcast.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I think it's kind of like a vlog thing.
Oh, okay.
And I haven't done one in like the week. No, wait, I did one about a week ago. Like I was doing 2 a week, but like 3 weeks ago, the chick I was dating broke up with me and sent me into a depression like you can't fucking believe.
Yeah.
I mean, just come on. I'm 51. She's 34, and I mean, she's amazing. And just we've been dating over a year, about 14, 15 months, and just we went to dinner the other day. She's like, "Can I come over? Can we go to dinner?" I was, yeah, what's up? And she's like, damn. Now, keep in mind, I've seen her more in the last 3 weeks than I typically. We used to see her like once or twice a week. I mean, I see her like 3 times a week now.
So it might be back on.
And nothing changes. Like I stayed there, spent the night last night. I wake up this morning and she's sitting there, and I wake up and she's staring at me. She's like, "I love you so much," and I'm like, what is going on? She's like, I don't know. I just don't think it's going to last. And I'm like, all right, I'm done. I'm leaving.
I just went through a breakup too. I empathize.
It's rough.
It's the fucking worst, bro.
Yeah,
it is the worst.
But you know what's even worse is all of my buddies that I have, like from, like your high school buddies, like all of them are meatheads. So if I talk to them, they're all like, fuck that hoe, bro.
Yeah,
you need best way to get over one girl is get on top of another.
I'm like, all right.
You should have fucking known better, bro. Dating a chick that late. It's like, shut up.
Yeah.
You're not helping me.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I seen that shit coming, bro. I said, I don't want to hear that.
Yeah.
Just don't talk to me.
Yeah.
And I get better insights from the people that leave comments on my channel than I do from the guys that should be there to be like, hey, bro, what happened? I'm sorry, man. What about, Instead, they're the
ones punching a hole in the wall and crying, but they're just alone.
That's probably how they deal with their shit. Yeah.
So anyway, like a week ago or 4 or 5 days ago, I put up a video of us breaking up. Like, say, look, this is what happened. But and listen, people go nuts because I did a video like 6 months ago about dating her. How I met her, us dating, and this and that. Keep in mind, I met her in the halfway house.
Oh, wow.
So she had done 4 years for a meth conspiracy.
Wow.
So the fact that we're even dating, like, I mean, and I get it. Her issue with me is we're vastly different. This is a chick that's in school. She's about to graduate to be a marine mechanic. Okay, she was in the military, got out of the military. For 7 years, she was a tour guide for hog tours where they go and they hunt hogs and slaughter them.
Whoa.
I mean, this is a chick that hunts alligators, a deer. She's a hunter.
Some Florida shit.
Yeah, this is her whole family. Like they work like dairy farms. There's a whole segment of Florida, like there's a huge farm industry in Florida that people don't think of Florida. That's, her family works. I mean, these are pickup trucks, hunting. You know, this is
Old
a chick.
school.
Yeah.
This is a chick that when I had COVID like about 2-3 months ago, she got it too. Now I'm in bed for 10 days, right? She's down for like 3 days, and she's like, I can't do this anymore. I'm not laying in bed. I'm not as sick as you. I'm starting to feel better. I'm going to change the brakes on my dad's car, and I'm going fishing. I'm gonna call you in a couple days. And I'm like, I'm fucked up. And she's like, but you're an adult. You're gonna be okay.
Oh my god.
And she leaves, and I'm like, fuck. And then she's sending me pictures. She sends me pictures of like cows. She sends me pictures of, you know, of like her dad's car. Like she's like sends me like, I got the rotors off and this and that. I mean, at school she sends me pictures of engines. Like, I took this engine. It's a Yamaha such
Jesus.
and such, and it's
Oh,
just
wow.
like
You'll have to figure out how to keep her. It sounds like.
that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm saying that's like we're vastly different. But you know, and she's like, we're so different. She's like, you're not interested in what I'm doing. She's like, and I'm just not interested in true crime, and I'm not. It's just I'm not, and I'm like, okay, so. But we're together and we have fun and we're both in love with each other, so that should be enough. And she's like, I just don't know if it's going to be enough.
Right.
And I'm like, fuck, I'm 51. I can't fuck around. Listen, I got to find a fucking chick. It's all downhill from there. Or, you know, I got to find a chick that's that's really is interested.
Yeah.
And if you're not, and then sure enough, I'm like, okay, I mean, if it's over, it's over. And then like the next day, she's like, I miss you so much. Can I
Yeah.
come over? And then it's 2 days later. It's like, I can't stop thinking about you. Will you come over? Yes. Okay, you know, because I'm weak.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. You know,
Not
same
weak.
things over and this has been going on for 3 fucking weeks.
This has
It's
been
like,
going on for millennia,
yeah,
by
it's
the way.
just
Millennia.
move. I'm saying just move in.
Yeah.
Move in.
Let's just do this.
Yeah.
Oh, listen. And then she found out I went on a couple dates. I'm not found out. Like I told her. Like I said, you understand what are we going to do? We're just going to keep sleeping together until eventually I find someone. I'm like, you understand that I'm going to date other people. And she goes, I know. And I mean, I understand that. I'm like, I mean, to be honest, I've already been on like 3 dates. And she goes, what?
Oh.
And I went, well, yeah, I mean, she goes, it's been 2 weeks. And I'm like, I'm sorry, what's the protocol for when some chick rips your fucking heart out of your chest? How
Yeah.
long am I supposed to wait? I
She
said,
wants
Yeah.
to be able to still sleep with you confidently.
right.
Yeah.
You know.
Good woman's perspective.
Yeah. Well,
Damn.
It's so ridiculous.
These women are really your downfall.
Yeah.
I mean, it really what it comes down to.
that's so true.
We all got to be careful, and if we ever get in trouble, you ain't fucking saying shit, right? I mean, how are we?
She is. I'm just letting you know. She's like, no, you're my soulmate.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you still will be
Yeah.
when you're in prison.
Yeah.
I'll
mean,
visit you.
Yeah, exactly.
You'll
I'll
fall under
miss
pressure.
you.
Yeah. I'll miss you.
Fucking crazy.
Fuck yeah, this was awesome. Thank
This
you
was
so much,
incredible.
Matt.
Thanks,
Damn.
Matt.
Thank
And
you.
he's single, so
Yeah.
you heard it here.
all your
Mingle.
all your 22-year-old listeners.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
They love it.
Peace and love.